across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Thank you to Alex Phillips. She's back, of course, tomorrow right here on Talk. So the news we broke on the show yesterday. Meta has agreed to pay up to $18 billion to dozens of US states over the next 10 years. This is to settle claims that its social media platforms harmed kids. The landmark trial saw Meta accused of knowingly and deliberately designing features to get children addicted to its platforms. Tell us something we didn't know. And by the way, 18 billion over 10 years over dozens of states will not touch the sides of a multi-trillion-pound company. What is the appropriate age to begin looking at social media? We'll look at that story in just a moment. Also this afternoon, a leading think tank says Andy Burnham should start charging pensioners national insurance, arguing it's the fairest way to protect working people from further tax hikes. The PM previously refused to rule out tax rises to help fund public services. This wouldn't be all pensioners, by the way. This would be pensioners, I think, who earn over 50,000 quid on top of their state pension. So people who are reasonably well... Is that fair? Is that a fair... Are there enough of them, by the way, to make any tangible difference? And Britons are among hundreds feared dead after devastating floods in Nepal. Rescuers are searching for survivors after that torrential rain triggered flash floods, landslides, with several British nationals reported missing, including 2 teenagers. We hear we're live in Nepal a little later. Details on all of those stories on the way. 0344 499 1000. What is the appropriate age to start using social media? So there's a question. This is how the Americans are telling the story. This will sound very familiar. Have a listen.
Are your kids scrolling social media right now? Are you? A lot of people are. Well, the U.S. Surgeon General says the mental health crisis among our young people is being driven by social media.
Yeah, this really shouldn't come as a major surprise to anyone. And now he is calling for intervention and regulation when it comes to kids and the use of the many platforms online.
Yeah. Well, we're familiar with most of these arguments. We've had them many times. This one takes a bit of a turn, and I'll come to that in a second. We touched on the story yesterday afternoon, and it was this happens sometimes, just at the end of the show, about the last 20 minutes. This news broke. We got chatting about it very briefly, and I thought this deserves a bit of an airing, because I'm quite confused as to what is going on. So the overarching headline on this is that Meta, they're the owners of Facebook and Instagram, have agreed on this settlement, $18 billion. That's about 13.3 billion pounds. With US states over its allegations that its platforms were deliberately designed in ways that hooked young users and harmed children. Now, of course, they deny any wrongdoing on this, and we're still having a philosophical debate about whether kids should be on social media. I think we all know the answer. We know Australia, of course, already taken the plunge on this one. Under 16 social media ban, forcing platforms to take reasonable steps to stop kids having accounts. Britain is now moving, of course, in the same direction. The government are pursuing restrictions for under 16s. Now, I know there's ways around it. You can, do all sorts of things, VPNs and the like, and find your way still on it. But broadly speaking, if it works, it works. And here's the bit, though, I find utterly fascinating, because there's been an outrage on this, and the outrage hasn't just come from kids. The annoyed and the furious in this argument are not the kids, they're adults. And I find this is the bit that I find utterly fascinating. This is where I want to get to the nub of this story. The loudest objections are coming from the political right. Not the Green Party, who say, laissez-faire, everybody had a free speech, everyone, even the kids deserve to... No, the loudest voices against a ban come from the political right. Since when did Conservatives become the Che Guevaras of Snapchat? When did that happen? Traditionally, of course, the right has been the home of boundaries. Kids shouldn't watch pornography. Kids shouldn't gamble, drink, shouldn't be exposed to adult material, shouldn't have unrestricted access to things capable of damaging them. But to suggest that maybe a 12-year-old doesn't require an addictive 24/7 computer in their pocket, feeding them sexualised content, violence, self-harm material, bullying and the opinions of 400 million complete strangers, and suddenly it's government control. What's the deal there? Just explain. If you're a right-winger, and I speak for a lot of people when I say that, I mean, please, seriously? We regulate kids' access to cigarettes, to alcohol, gambling, porn, getting into a nightclub. Nobody screams tyranny because a 9-year-old can't order 12 pints and stick 50 quid on the 3:30 at Kempton. That's outrageous. They should be in touch. Nobody says that. Kids need boundaries precisely because they are kids. Yes, children do not need an algorithmic addiction and endless validation from people they've never met. Social media companies have had years to demonstrate they can make these platforms genuinely safe for children. And of course, they haven't in any shape or form. Now, the companies will go, well, yeah, but Elon Musk would say, Twitter, it's not for kids. There's a kid on it, they shouldn't be on it. No, I get that, but it should be hard to get on it as a kid. I know it's not foolproof. Do we copy Australia? Set the age at 16, set it at 18, set it at 30, wherever you enforce it properly. Kids do not need followers. They need a childhood. I don't think that's too much to ask. So what is the reservation on this politically? I get that, government overreach. What could they do next? Why are we giving the government this much power? But we already give the government powers when it comes to what kids can and cannot do. Age restrictions are not controversial, whether it's a bookmaker's or a cinema. It's perfectly normal. Nobody questions that. We don't call it tyranny for those reasons that I just described. So what's going on there? Why has there been such an outcry from the right about a social media ban for under 16s? I think social media will eventually be like, it'll be like selling kids cigarettes. It will be like that. The stuff on there is already bad enough. And of course, you can use social media for the good. You could find yourself only following stuff that is of interest. It can become the world's best magazine, full of great stories, great journalism, great images, great videos. Mini documentary, you can do it for all of that. But broadly speaking, that is not the experience of most people. 0344 499 1000. Give me there's so many tentacles to this. Give me your overarching position on this social media ban thing. The Facebook and them getting fined. I mean, they got fined because they were very naughty. They say we didn't do anything wrong. They did. They absolutely did. If you're a social media platform and you're designing things so that feeds, you look at a feed, and the design is done so that it never ends, so you can never stop scrolling. That's deliberate. We have regulations around certain things for obvious reasons. I'm very light touch. I don't like rules and regs too much. I like basic laws of the land. I like obvious and tangibly intelligent and pragmatic rules that make sense to the vast majority of us. I wouldn't be supporting anything if it was dilly-dallying around my right to look at stuff as an adult. But when it comes to kids, I mean, come on, what's the deal here? What's the objection to banning kids from social media? 0344 499 1000. Let's get David Wooding with us, Sun columnist, political journalist of many years, for a comment on this and the other big stories of the day. David, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. So, I mean, this was a big story. 18 billion quid does sound like a lot of money until you remember that this is a multi-trillion-dollar company. 18 billion over 10 years. I mean, I'm pretty sure if they whacked 18 billion in an interest rate account at the moment, over 10 years it would probably pay for itself.
It's a drop in the ocean, Ian. This money, these big tech companies basically run the media now. I mean, everybody else, even newspapers who have their websites, they have to get their hits by getting them tweeted, if you like, on social media. Most people come to newspaper websites having seen a link on Facebook or on X. They don't just go onto the morning website and say, oh, let's see what's in the daily whatever. So they are dominating the whole media landscape. And it's interesting what you just said earlier, Ian, about the right being against any regulation for children on this one. Very, very strange. I think it's got something to do with free speech, but I think they're greatly mistaken on that. But what's also interesting is that the left seem to be more interested in more regulations on the traditional media, on television, radio, and newspapers.
Yeah, it's quite bizarre, isn't it?
It's like wanting to regulate the uses of horses and carriages in the day of the fast motor car.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. So, I mean, these big tech companies run the media. They are into our brains on everything. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, I'm sitting here looking at the papers in the morning before I'm getting ready for work, reading what's going on, got the radio on in the background, looking through my emails, and I might get a WhatsApp from a friend sending me a link. Have you seen this? And I click on it. It could be something to do with football, or it could be something to do with politics. And I look at it, and a little video that goes on for 20 seconds. No sooner has that finished, then another one comes on after it, and then another one. And I find 15 minutes later, I'm sitting there looking at short videos on a whole range of things that are slightly of interest to me.
You've barely touched your shredders at that point because you've been too busy scrolling.
Absolutely. And you suddenly say, what am I doing here?
Yes.
I get to put the thing down. But children don't have that. And children, you know, they can spend hours and hours on them. We just don't know what they're looking at. So I think it's right that there should be some kind of restrictions on the use of social media by kids.
I mean, there is I was trying to tell my 12, nearly 13-year-old this, because he will see a bit of YouTube. YouTube isn't the greatest offender, by the way, on all of this, he tends to seek out stuff that he finds interesting. But if he gets on the shorts, then of course what happens there, it's just a sort of doom scrolling, and on it goes. And he says, and I've sat there with him when he's looked at some of this stuff, and I haven't seen anything particularly harmful in terms of the content. There's a lot of football stuff he finds himself looking at because he likes that, and some music, and then just sort of wacky videos of, I don't know, a dog falling off a wardrobe and, making a funny noise or whatever. So that's broadly it. But that isn't the point. I was trying to tell him the other day, the point isn't just the content. The point is the sheer nature of sitting there. You could leave him for 5 hours if you wanted to, and he would literally do that all day. Now, the last time I looked, kids didn't want to play Monopoly for 5 hours, or even Lego for 5 hours. There's something about it that is very different from anything that's gone before it. So it's not a normal pastime, even if the content is okay. The addiction properties of these things, Dave, are really rather powerful.
Absolutely, and it's attention span as well, Ian, because... Yeah. You won't want to sit and read a book that's more than 5 pages long. That'd be looking with 5 pages, I think, and watch a feature-length film. I mean, they just want to watch short things. And if you have a look at your phone as well, now, granted, I do emails and do a lot of work on my phone, but you suddenly see your screen time this week was 7 hours a day or something, and you suddenly, my goodness, why have I spent so much time on my phone? Yes. And I hate to think what some of these kids are looking at. And have you seen little babies with these things? I mean, if you leave your phone lying around and there's a 2-year-old in the house, the 2-year-old will pick it up, doesn't know what to do with it, but he or she will be doing this because they've seen their parents doing it.
I see it in the supermarket all the time when someone's pushing their little one around. I'm not even talking about 3, 4-year-olds. I'm talking about 2-year-olds who are holding a phone, and they're obviously they might be watching Peppa Pig or something like that. But what was the deal? I mean, in relative terms, this stuff's only been around for half an hour. What was every kid, every baby, every child doing before somebody invented a mobile phone?
We just don't know what the impact of this is going to be, and it will all come home to us in 20, 30 years' time. There'll be mental health problems. What about eye strain? What is it doing to our eyes?
It's a fair point.
Looking at it from the same distance all the time, the muscles in your eyes are going to get affected by that. And I think we're storing up a whole lot of problems for the future with this. We really, as parents, need to make sure that our children are being monitored on that. I mean, I used to go out playing football for hours on end. I was screamed at and told to come in and get some homework done. So, you know, that's taken over from that sort of thing. At least when I was out playing football, I was interacting with other children. I was getting dirty, I was getting fresh air, and I was having some exercise.
Does anyone still have a parent that calls them in? Because that used to be a thing, didn't it? Your mum at the front door go, Ian! And it's like, you know, I'd be in a different postcode. I could hear her. I'd think, oh, my goodness. It was like sort of the bat signal being sounded. And, you know, and the journey home, which when I look at it as an adult was just around the corner, but it seemed a mile away. And we were playing football or something, and, you know, you dart back, get on your bike, go back quickly because it was dinner time, etc. One of the issues with this, Dave, it seems to be, we talked about why it seems that the right, political right, are very much against this ban. We touched on it just at the end of the show yesterday. The answers are, as you would expect, that this is about government overreach. If you give government this kind of authority to curtail what we are allowed to look at, it's just the starting point. Where do they go next? What else are they going to ban? Who else are they going to ban? It involves digital ID as well in order to authenticate your age, etc. They seem to be the body of reasoning, if you like, behind why the political right are against this.
Yeah, I think that's right. And there are some things we have to think about, because we don't want the creep of regulation and censorship, if you like, to enter the lives of adults. But nevertheless, you're talking about young children here, and it's not stopping them looking at political material. It's just trying to monitor and limit the amount of time they use it, so they don't use their phones when they're at school. They're not sitting under their bedclothes at 1 o'clock in the morning watching goodness knows what, and that they are trying to have a healthy start to life. And again, we keep saying social media companies don't monitor what they put out there. I mean, you can stumble across all sorts of things as an adult. You're looking for unpleasant and dangerous bits of stuff, and for children, some of them might spot one of them, and if they look at it a little bit too long, then suddenly they're going to be bombarded with loads of material in the same field.
Dave, stay with us. David Wooding is with us. We're looking at the big stories of the day. We are going to move on as well to, and by the way, you want to get in touch on that one, 0344 499 1000. What is the appropriate age to start using social media? As a parent, how do you kind of control that with your kids? Is it a futile journey to even try and ban this? I mean, it shouldn't be, but it's so big. And there are ways, there's VPNs and other ways you can kind of circumnavigate things if you really want to. How successful would it be? How concerned should we be? What is your overarching reasons why you believe that the political right seem more upset about this than any other part of the political spectrum? M says it's not about stopping kids on social media, it's about how they're going to regulate it. It's a way of getting digital ID through the back door. I mean, that is the argument I keep hearing. It's about digital ID. I mean, I would say you want to get it through the back. There's loads of other ways the government could get digital ID through the back door and probably encapsulate more people. A driving licence would be, you know, the obvious, well, your passport. Oh, yeah, it's all going to be online. You've got to press this number, have your photograph taken, do your fingerprint, and bingo. There you go. That would be a far more efficient way. I'm not so sure it is that. But it's just interesting that the political right, who are ordinarily the guardians of sort of self-appointed guardians almost of taste and decency, moral outrage and the like, disgusted of Tunbridge Wells, all of that. Daily Mail reading right-wing Tories who don't want kids in betting shops, pubs, and I know that's an over-the-top stereotype, but it's that wing of politics. And yet this is also the group of people who are saying, no, don't ban kids looking at social media. Yeah, there's a lot of self-harm stuff on there. There's a lot of porn on there. There's a lot of bullying on there. There's all sorts of really weird stuff. And we haven't got to scroll through Netflix on their front page to see how many documentaries are made literally on this theme of social media and the ins and outs and the dark side. 0344 499 1000.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full fence, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Rob in Cambridgeshire says, we don't give our consent to most things. The rules are imposed on us. The tech companies should be banned from providing kids inappropriate media. Parents are responsible for their kids and should be banned from allowing their children to watch inappropriate. Rob keeps saying unappropriate, or is it, have I got it wrong? Inappropriate media. Children shouldn't be banned, as it's their parents' responsibility to ensure they are not. Governments are overreaching and over-imposing their will on us and need to be reined in. I'm right-wing, and there are more and more interventions on our civil liberties. Direct this at the companies, not the people. Government is promoting AI and faster broadband. Step by step, we are moving to 1984. Bill Gates was warning about the whole AI thing being out of control. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. It's utterly fascinating, and nobody is, quite seriously, nobody is really talking about it. We momentarily had a very brief conversation in the office. If we started the show talking about the AI story and Bill Gates. Now, I think it's the biggest story in the world right now, not just that particular avenue of it. And you know what? I reckon if we open the phone lines on it, I'm not sure we'd get loads of... It kind of hasn't, it's the phrase, it hasn't really broken through yet. And it might be when it's... Somebody said to me, until you walk into work one day and somebody says, my mate Dave was just laid off on Friday, and so were all of his 10,000 colleagues. He works at the telecom place. 10,000, there's only 10,000. Yeah, they don't need anyone anymore. Until that happens, maybe we won't take it seriously. Anyway, I'm wanging on here. David Wooding is with us as well to look at the big stories of the day, David. Let's move to this one. We're now familiar, of course, with the shenanigans at the DWP and how they're going to try and raise money at the Treasury and all sorts of suggestions as to where best they can get it from other than working people. Andy Burnham previously ruled out tax rises to help fund public services, but now the former Labour mayor is being urged to go further and target wealthy pensioners to help raise money for the government. Have a listen.
We're in a challenging position. Whatever I do will be carefully thought through. It will be funded, but that's exactly what I've done so far. But there will be more to come as we go into the autumn.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on here, Dave? I mean, I understand you've got to look all over the place. They are apparently talking about pensioners who earn over 50,000 quid outside of their pensions. So, I mean, you could say, well, is that a fair... I can't imagine there's that many pensioners in that position, are there?
Probably not, but nevertheless, some pensioners who are going out and earning some money will find that they're going to be clobbered even harder than those who are younger and earning big money, and they've paid into the system all their lives. And the other one, Ian, is that there was a report by the Institute for Public Policy Research, the IPPR, which was Tony Blair's favourite think tank. It's a very Labour-leading think tank, and that's suggesting bringing in national insurance contributions for all pensioners. So anybody who is working in the maybe in the local supermarket a couple of days a week to earn an extra few bob will pay tax on that if it's on top of the pension, but will now, if that goes ahead, have to pay national insurance contributions as well. And it's always been traditional that once you get to retirement age, you don't pay the national insurance anymore. Yeah. You pay into the system to get your pension, and to continue paying it on top of income tax would seem by many pensioners to be a bit unfair.
I would have thought so. I mean, if you put it, as far as we can work out, just crunching the numbers here, Dave, if you applied it to earnings just above 12,750 to all pensioners above that rate, it would raise about 2 billion quid for the Exchequer, which is big, but it's not game-changing on its own. But this report only calls for the 2% surcharge to be applied to incomes over 50,000.
Yeah.
Now, I would imagine that's not even going to bring in a couple of million, is it?
It's not going to be in the sort of Meta type
No.
ballpark, is it? It's going to be small numbers. But it does make you wonder, Ian, whether this is part of a wider attack on the older working man and woman. I mean, they've got a lot of money to raise here, and there's very few avenues in which they can move, because the manifesto of 2022 said no rise in income tax, no rise in national insurance, and no rise in VAT. So Andy Burnham, unless he calls a general election to have a new mandate, has got nowhere to move on this. So he's got the only two ways he can tax us are wealth and stealth. Yep. Wealth taxes, which he's been warned against by one of his closest advisors, Jim O'Neill, Lord O'Neill, and the other one is stealth taxes, letting the thresholds grow, and little things like this. But the thing is, there's going to have to be so many of them to raise the money that he needs. He's got to put an extra $9 billion into defence, for example. He's just not going to get that sort of money.
And just briefly, we've just got time to look at this. Another Burnham-based story. The number of asylum seekers being housed in local communities, Dave, rather than hotels, that is, has topped over 73,000. More migrants are being moved into local areas. Andy Burnham, of course, says poorer neighbourhoods shouldn't be forced to carry all the weight. Remember when he said this?
We cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive, all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns, and I will look into the issues raised by the good people of Piddington.
Yes, I don't know how much he's looked into it. That was about a week ago or more, in fact, when he made those comments. Of course, the poorer areas, as he describes it, there's financial reasons why you don't put asylum seekers into the more expensive areas, because the taxpayer is footing the bill. But now we've got a situation where 73,068 asylum seekers are living in non-hotel accommodation. And, of course, the argument seems to go something like this, David. Yes, the hotels are closed, and Labour look at this like some kind of victory, which it isn't. But for many people, they've made the situation a whole lot worse. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, credit to where it's due. They said they'd close the hotels, and they've halved the number of migrants in hotels. It's now about 16,000. But as you rightly say, there's now 74,000 living in the community, in houses of multiple occupation, in sharing flats and so forth. And we don't really know the background of many of these people. There's so many horror stories. They've all arrived, young, undocumented men, and the number goes on. The other thing, Ian, is that the government announced a few days ago an extra £10 billion to build council houses. There's a story about them jumping the queue in Edinburgh, where they get first dibs on new housing. If they're going to start giving these houses, newly built houses, to migrants and asylum seekers rather than to people who live in the community who've been on a waiting list. In London, for example, you've got to wait 100 years. It says for a family house. I mean, it does take you decades to get a family house. So if they're going to jump the queue on this, that's going to create more division. I mean, they talk about the politics of division from the right wing. The left wing, with the policies on asylum, is really divisive.
100%. David, we hit the clock, but thank you, as ever, for being with us. He's David Wooding, a political commentator, Sun columnist, knows his way around a news story like few others. Thoughts on all of that? 0344 499 1000. Can you fire in some comment as well on taxing pensioners? Is that going to be the go-to place to raise money, as opposed to working people? taxing pensioners. Is that acceptable if it's over a certain rate? We're also looking at social media. Why is it that the right are more inflamed by a ban on social media for under 16s than any other part of the political spectrum? Your thoughts on that? And we'll explain a bit more detail as well. The Facebook story, what it means, what the implications are. What were they specifically accused of doing wrong? We'll come to that in a couple of moments' time. Lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 25 to 2. Let's get a voice note on that issue of social media. This comes from Rob. Afternoon, Rob.
Hi, Ian. We don't give our consent to most things. The rules are imposed on us. The tech companies should be banned from providing children inappropriate media. Parents are responsible for their children and should be banned from allowing their children to watch inappropriate media. Children shouldn't be banned, as it's their parents' responsibility to ensure they are not. Governments are overreaching and overimposing their will on us and need to be reined in.
Thank you very much, Rob, for that. And of course, for years, experts have warned about the impact social media can have, particularly on young minds.
Are your kids scrolling social media right now? Are you? A lot of people are. Well, the U.S. Surgeon General says the mental health crisis among our young people is being driven by social media.
Yeah, this really shouldn't come as a major surprise to anyone. And now he is calling for intervention and regulation when it comes to kids and the use of the many platforms online.
Well, big tech, of course, now facing the consequences. Meta have agreed an $18 billion settlement over lawsuits involving Facebook and Instagram, leading to new limits on screen time for millions of teens. In a moment, we'll speak to Jonathan Taylor, child safeguarding consultant, former detective as well, knows his way around these kind of stories. First, Guy Cocker, the tech journalist, is with us. Afternoon to you, Guy. It should be said, of course, that as always with these kind of cases, Meta, Facebook, they said, we don't take any, there's no admission to anything here, but we are going to hand over $18 billion anyway.
Yeah, over the course of 10 years as well, which for a company valued currently at about $1.5 trillion is a drop in the bucket. It is the largest settlement, though, for a child litigation case for Meta. So I think it is significant. And I think, looking at it from my tech expert perspective, it's sort of there's a change in the air. I think more and more governments around the world, I think most famously in Australia, are now lawmakers are instigating these restrictions for minors. And I think that's the way, obviously there's the UK, the much mooted UK Online Safety Act as well. I think that the mood is starting to change. I think that the public is understanding the dangers of these platforms. And I think just to take one of the points that your previous, your voice note said from the viewer, I think, if you actually go in and look at these parental controls that you have to kind of know about to even access, they are very granular. They're beyond, I think, the comprehension of most normal people who are not tech experts. And I think that's the difference. Meta will brief journalists like us, like myself, and say, we're doing all this stuff to help parents, to make sure that children are protected. But the internal documents that were used as part of this case clearly show that Meta has slowed down internal departments who are trying to raise awareness of the fact that children are dying, children are committing suicide, children are under pressure, their mental health is affected, and I think that's why they've settled here.
I think so. Just run over then, if you could, Guy. What is it specifically they were accused of doing?
So basically failing to protect children. So, not instigating things like no notifications on minor accounts overnight. So that, again, one of the things that if anyone has kids will know that that sometimes they can spend a lot of time not sleeping and be affected by this. I think it's New Mexico that has done a separate settlement also for about $1 billion, where they basically compared the harm to a company knowingly releasing air pollution. It's that sort of a public nuisance. So they've been slapped on the wrist again for $1 billion there. And so it's really, what they have to do now going forward is instigate things by default that are going to protect children. So that's things like a 2-hour daily time limit, and that's across Instagram and Facebook. So Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Those are the biggest apps. It's going to be a lock on teen profiles by default again, and restricting those that they can interact with. School mode, so when they're at school, again, no notifications between the hours of sort of 8 and 4 p.m. 8 and 3 p.m. And just generally kind of just restricting all of the little notifications that anyone that has used these platforms knows come up all the time.
And this is interesting, isn't it? Because it's not just about the content. I mean, the content is one issue, but it's really about the addictive nature of this, isn't it? That is central to the arguments around this. The idea that not only kids get addicted, they can't put them down. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there that will show you kids having a meltdown because somebody says you can't have your phone or whatever. You think, you're 8 years old, you can't react like that over a flipping telephone. So it's the idea that it was designed specifically to create that addictive effect.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the lifeblood of a company or any social media company, but a company like Meta, is new users, constant growth, getting people on these platforms, using them every day, building that habit. And I think the accusation really here has been that the company didn't do enough it knew that there were 11 and 12-year-old users on this platform, and it didn't do enough to restrict their access. Yeah. And I think, there's a conflict there at the center of that this is a publicly owned company. It's got a duty of obligation to its shareholders to keep growing. And so I think it's essentially that accusation. It's knowingly done little to prevent more people getting on the platform who might be too young and too vulnerable. That's what the whistleblower who was part of this case was essentially saying. And I think that it needs to do more to protect young children. People are becoming more and more aware of the dangers of this. It's been compared to something like smoking, and that's the central accusation.
I wonder whether the Facebook or the Meta lawyers were quietly giving a huge sigh of relief yesterday, because, $18 billion, if you're a company that is worth over $1 trillion, and this has got to be paid to various states, dozens of states, over the course of 10 years. I mean, all they'd have to do, if today they stuck 10 billion quid in the bank, then the interest would cover the fine, right? I mean, financially, this is not going to affect Mark Zuckerberg's not about to sell his house, put it that way.
Yeah, it's essentially nothing. There will be a huge sigh of relief because we've seen Mark Zuckerberg in previous trials. He's not the most sort of convincing of person under the kind of questioning that he gets in a courtroom. Similarly, for the head of Instagram who was testifying on Tuesday, I think this settlement, obviously, while it absolves Facebook and Meta from admitting any guilt in any of this, it sort of shows the temperature of the room. I'm sure that they were worrying about the way that this was going, and actually the maximum fine, that if it had carried on and not settled, could have been about the same as the valuation of the company at 1.5 trillion. So yeah, huge sigh of relief. I think it's interesting to look at the stock price. Basically, it was up on the news, but then it's kind of settled to its current level. So certainly investors are not worried about the fine or these restrictions that are now going to be put in place. It's a bit vague on when they're actually going to be coming in, whether it's this year, but I imagine it won't be till next year that these protections come in. So yeah, look at the share price. I think more broadly, though, the share price for Meta over the last few years has remained fairly flat. So it's not been growing in the same way that other tech companies who are, also linked to AI, that's the big growth engine at the moment, companies like Microsoft and Google. So I think broadly, there is some nervousness about, these tech companies, these social media companies, about whether they can continue to grow at the pace they have been doing before.
Indeed. Listen, great to have you on, Guy. Thank you for your time. He is Guy Cocker, the tech journalist. Thank you to him. Let's get a word from, on the other aspect of this, Jonathan Taylor, child safeguarding consultant, former detective, 15 years working in areas of child abuse. And good afternoon to you, Jonathan. Good to see you again. I mean, just a point to pick up what Guy was saying about how crafty these sites are. I mean, they say, of course, publicly, of course we care about kids, of course we care about safeguarding. If you try as a parent to curtail parental controls or even, how dare you try and delete an app, because it's almost impossible. You would think by now, given the sort of capabilities of big tech companies and phone manufacturers, that this would all just be a case of toggling a button that could never, ever again retrieve the app. But these companies are clearly and deliberately making it very, very hard, even for parents, to take responsibility and do something about it.
Yes, good afternoon. Exactly that. The issue is this is about money. We've seen that because this was a settlement, not a fine for Meta, Mark Zuckerberg. It is all about money, so that they will do the least amount that they need to do to say they're keeping young users safe. Because you've then got the other side of this, that children or young people, even those under 13, if they really, really want to use it and carry on using it inappropriately, they will. Any ban that you put in place, any protection you put in place, any toggle, as you say, you put it in place, those individuals who want to use it inappropriately, illegally, and without authorization, parental included, they will be able to. This is the problem we've got. That I totally agree with you that Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, they could all do a lot more, but they don't. So they'll do the minimum amount, leaving it to, guess what, parents.
And we're kind of almost beyond. I know everybody says, look, it's parental responsibility. That is true. Ultimately, that is true. But the idea that parents also need the help of companies, because kids do find way. Kids have phones now. That's never going to change. They have phones. They do homework on phones. They use phones for all manner and legitimate reasons as well. And all the while a kid has the phone, it's all very well saying it's the parents' responsibility. Kids find a way around things. And in the home, if I want to get rid of YouTube, which is the kind of, I feel I'm being personally haunted by YouTube at the moment, Jonathan. I can't get rid of this thing. It's on it's on Alexa, it's on a PlayStation, it's on a Switch, it's on my TV. All I can do is password protect it, which of course is useless when you've got an 8-year-old screaming at you saying, I want to watch it, give us the password, etc. Every parent's been through that. So the whole thing is deliberately set up to be difficult. And it's too easy, I think, just to say this is the responsibility of parents, because ultimately, yes, it is. Notionally, yes, it is. But why would any big tech company be showing violent pornography or pornography that isn't quite child pornography, but it verges into, it makes it look as if it is, that can just pop up on your feed while you're on the 5:20 train from Waterloo. I mean, what's that all about? Beheadings that you could see. The torturing of animals. I mean, the worst stuff that would never make it to a TV screen half an hour ago is now accessible on your phone.
They will all say, all the three big ones will say, well, we do our best to take this down as soon as we know about it. But you're quite right, it will still be there for the time being. And the one thing I still will always preach about is the algorithms that are used. That means that a child or user, yourself, myself, you're forever being prompted to see something you actually haven't requested. Now, this is all to do, again, with money. I personally think, and I think I've said to you before, in the two areas that government should step in is simply creating legislation to prevent recommended algorithms being used for under 18s, to prevent monetization for under 18s. This then takes away the glory or that want of a child to use the device more, because devices, you're quite right, they're not made to be dangerous. It's the content. That's the issue that we have here.
Yeah.
So I think governments can do a lot more. Companies, platforms can do a lot more, as well as, of course, unfortunately, parents.
Absolutely bang on. Jonathan, great to get your view as ever. Thank you. Jonathan Taylor, child safeguarding consultant, former detective, 15 years working in that area of child abuse investigations. And as concerned as anyone else, there's the material that is out there that is accessible to kids is plentiful. It's not just sexual, it's all manner of things. It could be self-harm, it could be violence as well. Then there's the bullying thing too. I mean, bullying is terrible and awful, and particularly for a kid, can be fatal as well in any form. But this is no longer something that's left at the school gates, where the kid's got to think, oh, when I go to school tomorrow, will it happen? No. In fact, it's likely to start when the school gates have closed at 3:30, because you go home, you look at your phone, and bang, there's a pylon. By definition, you want to look at it just to see if anyone's saying anything bad again. WhatsApp groups, they're not on the list of things to be banned, by the way. I don't like the idea of banning things, but I do think social media does need a nudge in the direction of basic regulations on taste and decency. I'm not going to apologise for that. I don't understand why. I mean, Lawrence here in Bolton says a lot of the political right are reliant on the use of social media, as the mainstream media will never give them fair, unbiased coverage. With the lowering of the voting age to 16, Labour would support it because it means these young people's political narrative is only coming from state-approved media organisations such as the BBC. I mean, I think there's a little bit of tinfoil hat in what Lawrence is saying. I know why he says it, but the left make the same argument about the mainstream media. They always say, well, they will never give proper left-wing views. What Lawrence probably means is views that reflect his opinion. But that's the difference between views and, opinion and fact. Because we can all have lots of opinions, doesn't make them all factual, and we like to see that reflected. So when we see something on social media, you see an individual that's, not even they don't even work in the media, but they've managed to carve out a bit of a career doing social media stuff. They've got 300,000-400,000 followers, and you think, wow, that's amazing. It's incredible. And people... I've got mates who do this as well. I've got half a dozen mates who do YouTube channels and successfully. It's not really news, it's sort of entertainment and opinion-led. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's literally nothing wrong with that. I love the fact that we live in that area of choice. But it is about deciding, well, is that bit news, is that opinion, etc. So you get into that sort of territory as well. 0344 499 1000.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gripping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full punch, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, welcome back. Let's get straight to the phones. Graham is in Colchester. Graham, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Hello, Ian.
Hi.
Yes, I was watching. Is it David that was from one of the newspapers you had earlier?
Yeah.
Saying about the physicalities of all this phone scrolling or the rest of it with the eyes. Yes, it's storing up a whole load of problems for our future generations. But the other thing is this fine that Meta have got for 18 billion over 10 years. I'll tell you what would have made Mr. Mark Zuckerberg sit up and take note. If it had been 180 billion every year for 10 years, that would have made him do something correct.
Right. What is the... I understand they're a product, and I understand that social media has gone... There's a tipping point where it's gone beyond just being a bit of a pastime that people like. It's become, you know, collectively, they become platforms where, you know, presidents make announcements on social media, organisations break news on social media, debates are shown live on social media. So it's now become something much bigger.
Yeah.
So you might think that would gee them... I mean, they haven't got to panic for customers, is my point.
No.
It's not as if they've got to make it, you know, it's not like they're a gambling company. They're going to try and hook you in and say, oh, you get a free spin of the wheel for you get 30 quid to spend in the online casino for... It's not that. They haven't got to do any of that. They don't need to do this.
No. But also, like your friend David was saying earlier, you know, for anyone to find out anything from, say, like what we would classify as the normal media, like the newspapers and whatever, they have to go through social media to find that out, and that's destroying, as far as I'm concerned, proper media.
It's kind of like working in this industry myself, and I'm glad you made that point, Graham, because I feel it quite tangibly that what it's done, it's fragmented everything. It's kind of... And for many people, that's thrown out a whole load of choice, and that's a good thing. So you don't have to be Trevor McDonald to become a journalist. Bob in Arbroath can start a YouTube channel, and if he's lucky, he might find himself with enough viewers to make himself a couple of £100 a month that he didn't have before. So on that basis, you go, well, that's quite good. The difference is Bob in Arbroath is not a real journalist. He's just a bloke with a load of opinions. So which is fine, but it just means that it's all, you know, to find where is the truth is becoming harder. And people tend to think their opinion is the truth, of course.
Yes, and that's the problem, and that's what leads to all the troubles that we've got in society today, because unfortunately the younger generation believe this rubbish from social media instead of researching it properly from, you know, proper media sources.
And that's always the problem. It's a great point to finish on. Graham, thank you for that. Really appreciate that as a first call on this, Graham in Colchester, because this story is bigger than the whole area of social media. I appreciate not everybody is engaged in the ins and outs. You know, most people go, do you know what? I just go on my phone. If I like it, if it's on ITV and I like it, I'll watch it. If it's on YouTube and I like it, I'll watch it. And when you look at it like that, you go, that's kind of fine. That's fine. And like I say, I've got mates who do this, a couple kind of for a living, and they're kind of not making loads of money out of it. They're doing okay. They wash their face, to coin a phrase. And that's great in that sense, of course. But then you get into the territory of, I don't know, I get it every day. Somebody sends me a little tweet and says, why are you not talking about this? And it's a picture of a fella, I don't know, in his kitchen or something, having a rant about, could be anything from COVID to gambling rules, anything you like. Why not talking about this? Well, it's just his opinion, mate. It's not a news story. So you get into, there is confusion. There's a big fog of, the choice has created a fog, I guess. More from you on the way, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome back. It is the home of common sense. We've got a lot to talk about here. The news we broke on the show yesterday. Meta, they're the owners of Facebook, of course, and Instagram, have agreed to pay $18 billion, that's over £13 billion, to dozens of US states over the next 10 years to settle claims that its social media platforms harmed kids. The landmark trial saw them accused of knowingly and deliberately designing features to get kids addicted to its platforms. So this wasn't so much about the content. That's almost another debate as important as it is. It was about the addictive properties of its platforms. More on that, more comment from you. And what is the appropriate age to start using social media? Because we're penciled in to ban it, of course, for under 16s in this country, following Australia. Why is it that you would argue against that? I mean, there's a lot of things under 16 shouldn't be doing, and seeing mucky stuff on the socials might well be up there. Also, a leading think tank says Andy Burnham should start charging pensioners national insurance, arguing it's the fairest way to protect working people from further tax rises. The PM had previously ruled out tax rises to help fund public services. We'll look at that in just a moment. And Britons are among hundreds feared dead after devastating floods in Nepal. This is it is still an emerging story. It is absolutely desperate and disturbing and horrific to see some of the images coming out of Nepal. Rescuers are searching for survivors. There's torrential rain, flash floods, landslides, and there are several British nationals, as we understand it, including, I think, 2 teenagers that have been referenced that are reported missing. We'll bring you more on that story. We'll be crossing live to Nepal to get the latest. We'll come back to some social media comment in just a second, and there's lots of it. And by the way, the other question we threw in wasn't just about kids and the age. Why is it that the political right seem more disturbed by a ban on kids, not on them, on kids, than anyone else? Because ordinarily, the politically right, being stereotypical about it, of course, have been the guardians of taste and decency, disgusted of Tunbridge Wells and all the rest of it. You wouldn't have kids in betting shops or pubs. You wouldn't allow kids to buy porn or cigarettes, etc. So what's the deal with social media? Why is it that the right seem more upset that there could be a ban? Tell us more on that. 0344 499 1000. So let's look at pensioners and national insurance and, well, all sorts of taxation. Leading think tank says Andy Burnham should start charging pensioners national insurance, arguing it's the fairest way to protect working people from further tax hikes. At the moment, of course, it's really only working people that governments go to. Where else would you go? You can't go to unemployed people. Pensioners at your peril previously, so go for the workers. How often can you keep doing that? Andy Burnham previously ruled out a tax rise to help fund public services, and now the Prime Minister is being urged to go further and target wealthy pensioners to help raise money for the government.
We're in a challenging position. Whatever I do will be carefully thought through. It will be funded, but that's exactly what I've done so far. But there will be more to come as we go into the autumn.
There'll be more to come. I always get worried when a Prime Minister goes, there's more to come. What does that mean? Just bring me good news, Andy. I don't want any bad news. But if you're a pensioner, there might be some new news for you. Ryan Shorthouse is with us, founder and chair of Bright Light, the independent think tank promoting liberal conservatism. Good to see you, Ryan.
Good to see you.
I mean, look, you know, taxes, schmaxes and all the rest of it. Nobody likes a tax. You know, it's like, I think I'm right in saying years ago when income tax came in, wasn't it like a temporary thing or something? Was it meant to be there for like a year back in 1302? And then suddenly it miraculously stayed.
Well, we do need some taxes, obviously, to fund public services. So the question is where those taxes should be. So I'm not from IPPR, which is the think tank that's proposed raising national insurance for those earning over 50 grand who are above the state pension age. But some context. So the first is that the state is expanding. There's more demands on the state. Mm-hmm. A large part of that is due to ageing-related expenditure, so pensions and health. So the IPPR rightly say that about 4/5 of the increase in fiscal costs are going to be down to age-related expenditure, ageing. So any serious party that really wants to cut the net public sector debt, which is now approaching nearly 100% of GDP, need to do something seriously about cutting pensions or healthcare costs. And this ever-expanding state is being paid for by a narrower group of people. Yep. For two reasons. One is the personal tax allowance has gone up over the last 15 years, and also people on higher incomes have been brought into those higher tax bands because of fiscal drag and because they brought the higher rate of tax, the additional rate of tax, down from 140 to 125k. So we are putting a huge amount of burden on the most highly productive working people to pay for an ever-expanding state. I do not think that that is sustainable or fair. A lot of people say, for example, the additional rate of tax is 45p. Well, it ain't. It's you add national insurance on top of that, employees' national insurance, it's actually 47%. Yeah. If you then add employers' national insurance, the effective tax rate of somebody earning that much is over 52%. Yes. So over half of their work, the income from their work, goes to the tax man.
And at that stage, you've surrendered your right to any, like, not paying tax before 12,750.
Yeah, and you don't get the
all that
30 hours of tax-free childcare.
All of that disappears. Yeah. So it's this narrow group that is almost funding the entire system, right? I mean,
increasingly so.
And the argument, I suppose, has always been, well, who else do we go to?
Well, you know, there's an argument that we had the age of austerity in the 2010s, but actually the changes the Conservative and coalition government made the tax system more progressive, i.e. higher earners paying more. The second context, really, is that the Labour government said we're not going to raise national insurance, VAT or income tax. So what they can do instead of raising the rates is broaden the base of those taxes. So that's why IPPR are saying let's increase national insurance on people above state pension age, because that's technically not breaking the manifesto. And you know, it should be said that you can still claim your state pension as well as working.
Yes.
So even if you put the national insurance on their earnings, they'd still be able to access the state pension age. At the moment, they don't pay any national insurance other than the employer who pays employers' national insurance on people above the state pension age.
When I looked at the numbers in this IPPR report, I could see the notion, I could see what they were talking about. It didn't seem to suggest it would raise an awful lot of money in the grander scale. And right there, I thought, well, would any government even pursue this? I mean, OK, every little helps and all the rest of it. But if you're talking about, if you taxed pensioners who are earning anything above 12,750 and you put that little 2% surcharge on, then you'd get about 2 billion quid. So, OK, 2 billion quid, again, it wouldn't run anywhere near a whole department of anything, but it would help. However, this is talking about a 2% surcharge to be applied on incomes over 50,000. Now, there can't be loads of those pensioners out there.
No, I mean, you're right as well, which is there's political pain, i.e. in targeting pensioners. So what I think you need to be doing is broadening the base of taxes and not just targeting particular groups. So where Labour have gone wrong is say, you know, we're going to raise VAT on private school fees, for example, and it looks like you're just attacking those parents, when actually nearly 50% of all goods and services in the UK do not have VAT applied to them. And equally, national insurance doesn't apply to pension income, it doesn't apply to rental income. So I would rather have a system where we broaden the base of a lot of these taxes, and it could be the case that we could reduce the rate. So instead of having exemptions for special interests, we have a simpler tax system, which is fairer for everybody. But what I would say about the IPPR's proposal, I think a better thing to do would follow what Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak started, which is they began to reduce national insurance. And national insurance is squarely a tax on work, OK? So people are double taxed if they work. They get their income tax and then their national insurance. That doesn't apply to landlords, it doesn't apply to pensioners. I would rather abolish employers' national insurance altogether and gradually phase down employees' national insurance and compensate by increasing income tax. And then that income tax will then apply to workers, pensioners, people who derive income from rent. And so it would be a fairer system by doing that. So that would be the approach that I would take. Unfortunately, Labour are not going to take that approach because they've said they won't raise income tax. So that's why IPPR is saying we'll broaden the base by applying national insurance.
I mean, they really back themselves in a corner. I mean, it's a stupid thing to say we're not going to raise tax. I mean, OK, great, as a punter, you go, that's brilliant, we're not going to raise my taxes. Then you have to take a step back and go, well, actually, we've got to run this country. And, you know, the idea that you would, for an entire parliament, decide that you are going to curtail your ability to raise money by overtly announcing there'll be no rise on any form of the basic three basic rates of tax.
Yeah, I think they hemmed themselves in unnecessarily. I mean, I can see why they did it. They had fears of 1992 where, you know, they thought they were going to win the election and then there was this sort of tax bombshell posters. I was only 7 at the time, but, you know, it's very ingrained in people's minds. But at the end of the day, I think people were so angry with the Tories that Labour didn't need to restrict themselves so much. But to be honest, I think it's right to have principles for how you're going to approach tax. And the right principle is, let's reduce the tax burden on work and increase it on income from assets. My view is that's the right approach, because I don't think you should overly tax effort, enterprise, entrepreneurialism. These are the things that drive growth, drive ambition. I want to lower taxes on those things. And I think that should have been the principle that they put in their manifesto.
I I make this point often, and you're right. The idea that you just tax somebody because they've been successful is quite obscene, really. And I often tell the story of, where I live in Sevenoaks. There's some, really tasty houses around that neck of the wood. I'm forever bumping into some pensioner. I don't know why Alicia, our producer, just looked at me as if I've just shot her dog or something. What's wrong? No, not tasty as in edible, although some of them might be. There's some really tasty houses. And I'm always bumping into some old fella who's clearly long retired, and there he is in his nice comfy chinos and his very loose sweatshirt mowing the garden of his £3 million house. And I, morning, and I find out he's lived there since 1952, which, a brief calculation, I do it every time, means he bought the house for about £35 back then. And he's doing all right. Now, there is a school of thought, go after him, Chino boy, with his lawnmower. But why should you? I mean, he bought his house, he's paid his taxes, he's worked all his life. It's an easy target, isn't it, to go after a pensioner who's got a few quid?
Well, like I said at the beginning, we need to tax somebody. So the
lawnmower tax or Chino tax. There you go.
The government does need to make difficult decisions. And at the moment, the decision is, let's tax people in their 40s and 50s, often with children, a huge amount of money. They're already stressed because they're trying to raise young children and all the costs involved in that. They often have mortgages. And we are placing the tax burden on them. We've decided to do that. I don't see why that necessarily is fair. And you talk about the guy who's, lived in that house for ages now, mowing the lawn. Now, he has worked very hard, and that should be applauded and celebrated. He hasn't necessarily worked hard for the gains in his property value.
True.
And the baby boomer generation have been on the whole, have been very lucky with the house price gains. The equity in their house has massively increased. And that's largely, I'm afraid, down to luck, not solely, but largely down to luck. I would rather reduce the tax on people who are sweating, working hard for their children, rather than income that's derived from luck. So that's why, along with Adam Smith, the philosopher, I agree with taxing inheritance, because there is lots of evidence to suggest that people who inherit lots of money, and this is a stereotype, actually it reduces their propensity to work hard, set up businesses, that sort of thing. I want to reward people and reduce the tax on people who are, day in, day out, working very hard, rather than the people who just get money through sheer luck.
I get that. Just to go back to Lawnmower Boy, as we shall now refer to him, I mean, if his kids inherit the house, they're never going to have to work again. I mean, they just literally wouldn't have to go to work. And I think I wrote a chapter in a book about this once, about an entire tier of sort of middle-class kids who are going to be finding themselves in a position where they'll be left not one. We once interviewed, this is absolutely true, we once had a guy call into a radio show I was doing, and he was, through a long line of issues in his family, he was the only recipient of both sets of grandparents' wills and his parents. And he ended up at about the age of 32 with, he didn't tell us the amount, but a ridiculous amount of money, like retirement money at that age. He didn't have to work again. He said he'd rather he had his parents back and his grandparents, but nonetheless, that's the position he was in. Similarly with Lawnmower Boy, who, by the way, I'm suggesting has worked hard all his life. Might have been a bank robber, I've got no idea. Could have been bone idle, who knows? But let's assume he did work all his life. He may be property and asset rich. He might have nothing else.
Well...
So what happens there? You're going to come along and say, give us your money and your lawnmower.
Well, no, I'd say he's got a choice. He can downsize. If he's living beyond his means, all of us have to make a decision. I've talked about the state living beyond the means and taking some cuts to repair that. If somebody is asset rich and cash poor and they can't afford their lifestyle, then they are going to have to draw on their assets to help out. And it's probably likely that Mr. Lawnmower doesn't have a mortgage and could downsize and get quite plentiful equity gains on that. So just another thing I would mention, which is millennials, and I'm a millennial, I'm a mid to older millennial, have moaned quite a lot about their circumstances. And because it has been a tough labour market post-financial crisis, wages have been stagnant, house prices have gone through the roof. But eventually they will be quite a lucky generation because they are the children of baby boomers and they're likely to, in this great transfer of wealth, to inherit huge amounts of money. Not everybody, but a good chunk of people. Now, lots of people complain about inheritance tax, and I don't want inheritance tax to be 100%. I think it should be at a proportionate level. But a lot of people complain about it and saying it's double taxation. Well, every time you and I go to the shop and pay VAT, we've already paid income tax, national insurance, and now we've got to pay VAT. So it's actually for workers, that's a triple tax. Someone who receives inheritance, it actually isn't double taxation. They haven't been taxed on that already. That's the first time it's being taxed. So
they haven't, but the money has, right?
Well, someone who's died cannot be taxed.
No, that's
the
true.
recipient is taxed.
I've got a feeling the Green Party will probably try that, though.
The Green Party might
tax the dead,
but they'll also say we should be whacking up taxes on high earners.
Of course
and I think we shouldn't be doing that because people who are working incredibly hard, who are young to midlife, trying to start a family, raise a family, the tax burden is too high on those people. We need to reduce it.
What about, just a final point then, back to Lawnmower Boy. So he's got his house, and I said that he probably bought it for 30 quid. Maybe he didn't buy it at all. Maybe he was left his house by his nan, and there's a very sad story there that it's the family house. You know, his nan was bombed out of her shoes during the war, and his granddad never made it back. His parents were kidnapped, I don't know, during the whatever happened. So it's his house. Why would he be made to sell his house?
Well,
they're going to be the arguments, aren't they?
But we have to...
He likes living there. It's not a mansion, by the way. It doesn't take much to have a £2 million house these days.
Well, in the south and London,
I know
agree.
That sounds casual to say that, but it's quite surprising.
I know what you mean.
What it does when you look at it in my head as a kid growing up in a working class background, a £2 million house is essentially a mansion. Today, it's not.
And I grew up in an ex-mining village, and that is a hell of a lot of money. But I agree, particularly in London and some areas of the southeast, it isn't that much money. But, you know, if we're struggling financially, this is why we save, right? We make difficult choices. We have to say we're going to sacrifice X, Y and Z. And I'm afraid even if you've worked very hard and got a house, if you're living beyond your means, you have to make sacrifices. And I'm afraid that does mean that in some cases, some people will have to downsize. I'm not saying, you know, they don't have a house. They'll just have to go to a house which is much less expensive.
Sure.
And that's the choice they'll have to make. And some people say, well, stamp duty is deterring this downsizing. To which I say, well, imagine this Mr. Lawnmower, let's keep going back to him. You know, his house bought it for 35 quid back in the 50s. It's now worth, I don't know, 800k. He's got no mortgage on it. He downsizes to a property of, I don't know, 500, 600k, pays stamp duty of 15 to 20k. He's still getting, you know, over 200k in equity gains, minus the stamp duty.
Think of how many lawnmowers you could buy with that.
Exactly. He's still getting a large equity release from that, even though he's paying stamp duty. So, you know, I think it is the case if people are asset rich and cash poor, they need to make sacrifices, just as people who are living in poverty and are of working age have to make difficult decisions about their life and make sacrifices to make sure they're living within their means.
When the state comes for your lawnmower, that's when you know times are really, really tough. Ryan, really good to see you. Great chat with Ryan Shorthouse. He's the founder and chair of Bright Blue. They're an independent think tank promoting liberal conservatism. Thank you to him. Pick up on anything you heard Ryan say in our discussion there. 0344 499 1000.
can go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gripping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full touch, go on! And we're on the way over to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Don't go away, Martin, with you in just a second. We were just talking there during the break. Ryan, who was our last... I'm always fascinated by these kind of... I think once upon a time it was quite simple, wasn't it? If you did all right out of life, if that's the... by the way, your measure of doing all right is, you know, remarkably varied depending on what you consider to be doing all right. For some people, if you are spiritually enlightened and very happy, but you've got Jack, then you're doing all right. And I love that. I genuinely love the idea if that was the only thing that kind of mattered, this sort of inner peace and all of that, and there were no other real considerations. Fantastic. Go nuts with your philosophy. But it was rather simple, that if you work well, you got a house and you got to the age of 50, your mortgage was paid off, you might have had a few investments or whatever, but you had a good pension, and you just retired and you lived the next 30, 40, maybe if you're lucky, 50 plus years in extreme circumstances. You go on holiday, and all of that's kind of gone. But somebody did say to me once, if you've got loads of money and if you've got loads of money and you're kind of on your own, so you're like a pensioner that's really done all right, the best place to live is a hotel. And it makes so much sense if you think about it, because you've got a nice room. Alicia, who's our producer today, just said in my ear, what about storage? You haven't got any storage, have you? You've got nothing to store. You flog everything. You live in a hotel, somebody cleans your room, you get fed all of your meals all day long. You wouldn't need big wardrobes, Alicia. I know you love a flowery dress and a bit of denim and all the rest of it, but you'd be all right. And then, of course, you've got a bar. There's a constant bar. You've got room service. You've got people around. It's a social... I can see and I'm not talking about one of those... Good. You might get bored of the food. You might get bored of the food. But then you could always go out for food if there's a chippy round the corner. Would you get cabin fever living in the same room all the time? You might do. But that's why I said the kind of precursor is if you've got a lot of money. So you'd get a hotel suite. So that, you'd have to have a lot of money. So we're not talking about the Premier Inn. As lovely as the Premier Inn is, and thank you, Lenny, for pointing me in that direction, I don't think it would work in that sense. You would get the cabin fever. Let's go to Martin in Exeter. Martin, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I downsized yesterday. I got the keys to my new, smaller house yesterday.
Nice.
Yes.
How much smaller is it?
I would say it's half the size.
Wow, OK.
OK, so hold that thought a minute. I was listening with some amusement to your young guest.
Mm-hmm.
See, what he forgets, he doesn't forget, he doesn't know, he wasn't there. In the 80s, interest rates went through the roof. People were handing back their keys.
They were.
I was lucky. I managed to fix my mortgage, which was 10%, by the way. And I worked my doodahs off just to hold on to my house 7 days a week. And, I'm not going to give you the Monty Python, we ate gruel thing, but people were in tears, literally going to the bank and dropping the keys off.
Yeah.
Now, we went through that. Yes, we got the upside. But you forget all that. What your guest is doing is taking a snapshot. I tell you what, house prices are going down now. The market is flat. It's a buyer's market and it's going down. So your guest taking this little snapshot of your genome cutting his lawn. And the thing that did annoy me a tad, he said, oh, he's living above his means. He's not. He's living within his means, and the government is moving the means around.
Yeah, that's true. He's living where he's always lived. You know, it's not like he's done... Is he going to get a knock at the door one day and go, mate, you've got to move, and here's the bailiffs to get you out?
Absolutely, that's going to happen. And what will... So I downsized, okay, by choice. It's totally my choice. I bought 2 houses, actually, just to make your guests fed up. I downsized by choice. But if tomorrow the government quadruple the council tax, your guest is going to glibly say, oh, well, he's living above his means.
Well, that's it. If governments irrationally move the parameters, then that's not fair to then go back to the individual like Lawnmower Man and say you're living above your means. If you, as you rightly say, they're talking about doing this, getting rid of stamp duty and council tax and having this sort of 0.7% thing, which I can only imagine is going to be horrific for quite a lot of people. And the only people that would gain from that are people that are planning on moving because they wouldn't pay stamp duty, so they would technically save there. But if you were planning on staying in your house and somebody says your £400 a month, sorry, your £300 a month council tax is going to become £800 a month, then that's going to be unsustainable.
Yes, and then your guest will glibly say, oh, well, he's living above
his means. Yeah. We've got a whole new catchphrase going here, Martin.
Yes, he can do one. He can
I love that. That's you said. I love that. What a great final point to finish on. Martin, good luck with your new endeavours, your new property or properties, plural. Thank you for that. That's Martin in Exeter. Let's go back to that issue of social media. What is the appropriate age to start using it? Your thoughts on Meta getting fined, the British government's sort of carbon copy Australian-style ban, and all of the above. Let's get a voice note on this. It comes from Helen. Hi, Helen.
My partner is 53 years old. He knows what's going on in the country. He knows all about the wider world events. He knows what's happening in the lives of his family and friends and loved ones. And that's where he's happy to leave it. He's never had a social media app in his life. I don't think he even has WhatsApp on his phone. Yet he is one of the most happy, contented people I know. He doesn't spend his time arguing with people he doesn't know on local Facebook pages. He doesn't spend his time scrolling through things that don't concern him or interest him. And I genuinely believe he's happier for it. So maybe there is a lesson there for all of us, including children and teenagers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one comes in from Michelle, who says, hello Michelle, by the way, says, Ian, I think the right, as in the political right, is up in arms. This is about the social media ban, as it will mean facial verifying of age, some sort of invasion of privacy. No one trusts government, rightly so, especially when they want to ban X but not Blue Sky. Anyway, I'm not sure there's any story that they want to ban X and not Blue Sky. But anyway, I think the social media ban for under 16s doesn't cover Blue Sky. I think I'm right in saying maybe that's the point Michelle makes. Anyway, she says, my little one uses my phone for the calculator. He wouldn't be interested in Facebook, but for those young ones that are, why don't they make a specific one for youngsters that is monitored properly? No ads, no algorithm, just safe. Kids gossip. They could stay in touch with one another without the brain rot. I love that concept. And there are ways, in theory, you can lock down your social media so that it's kind of a minimal version of it. But I've had so many conversations with parents about this. It's not easy to do. You would think by now that there would be such a thing as a toggle that you could quite literally, I keep mentioning YouTube, and I mention YouTube not specifically because of the content. In fact, YouTube do rather well on this, on the sort of barometer of taste. And most of the stuff I've seen my eldest look at has been perfectly legit stuff. It's sporting stuff, it's football stuff, it's silly shorts of somebody, you know, doing something a bit daft, or outtakes and crazy things happening on the rugby field, football pitch, whatever. It isn't that. It's about the sheer addictive nature of scrolling. That's the big problem with it. And every time you get to try and get rid of, even with the family sharing thing, it's a royal ache. It's an absolute ache. I can't understand why Apple or Samsung, and this falls to them, this bit, not the social media companies, are not able to provide a toggle on your phone that literally turns it off. So it doesn't appear in an act, and well, you turn off the App Store as well. So it literally turns it off. You can't see it or anything like that. It's not visible. You can't get to it in any shape or form. And it just doesn't quite work like that, and it should do. Joe's in Bournemouth. Joe, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Yeah, in regards to Meta, and I think you're exactly correct about the addictive nature being the big problem here. It's got nothing. They're never going to sort out youngsters being on the phone and being able to get through and work out how to get onto it. So it's a lie, the fact that they're going to be able to stop it. They're just going to bring in things. That's why the right are getting so upset, is because that's what they're looking to do, is control people. The bottom line is we need to get to a point where it's not addictive, where these scrolls are set in a way that there are breaks, there are things set to speed the timing. That's what they need to set a law on.
Because we've all done it as well, haven't we? We've all sat there on a phone and found yourself looking at nonsense.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it?
It's the easiest thing in the world. So for a kid, it's probably even easier.
Very easy. And again, my original call was saying that it's not just this. What runs parallel to that is gaming. The games for the kids now are addictive. They never end. And kids are brought into... It's like putting crack in a kid's hand with a phone.
You're right. There's no end to Fortnite, as an obvious example.
Nothing.
And from what I understand as well, Joe, one of the things that Facebook were accused of was that they were allowing kids to look at feeds on their site that also never ended. The feed never ended. So you start looking at it and you look at the comments and you look at it, and it just carried on and on and on. So you could sit there for the entire night just looking at a feed.
And they know what they're doing.
Of course they do.
They want people on there as long as they can, because they make more money that way.
Yeah.
And
it's
that's
exactly
what we need
that.
to deal with.
But these are companies that are already making a couple of $1 trillion. I mean, exactly. You know, I'm a capitalist. You know, I love people making money. I think it's what makes the world go round. But there's a point when you sit up and go, "Come on, mate. You know, have a day off. You got $2 trillion in the bank. What are you worried about?"
Yeah, but this is where the government are letting us down, and our kids down. Yeah. And unfortunately, anyone that, like Rob earlier, that spoke about children and parents' responsibility. No, you put, if you had a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and you put crack cocaine in his hand, see what happens. Okay, you have to have the government stepping in and saying you can't make things addictive anymore. You can't put things in place, time breaks. You could do it. So once you've scrolled for 5 minutes, there's a little break. 10 minutes, a bigger break. 15 minutes, a bigger break. To break that cycle in the brain.
Yeah. You're absolutely spot on. And with technology being at the level it's at, all of this stuff is doable. The algorithms as well are doable. You know, you're not telling me they can't remove content based on what's in it. Of course they can.
No, they need to put an algorithm in place that every 10 minutes something worthwhile watching comes up that's educational.
But they're able to serve you a video based on what you've previously looked at. So there is the system knows this person likes, I don't know, martial arts videos, so the next thing we'll show is Jackie Chan and his finest moments or whatever. It can do that, but therefore you should be able to put a similar algorithm that says, right, you can never be served up a video of somebody being tortured. I don't mean in a movie scene, I mean literally tortured. A school kid getting beaten up in the corridor, that kind of horrible stuff that appears every now and again. It must be able to deal with that. It's a curious time. Joe, you've been great. Fabulous call from Joe in Bournemouth. Thank you to him. Let's go to Anna, who's in Bridgewater. On pensions, Anna, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Oh, hello, Ian.
Do you own a lawnmower, firstly? Can I ask you about your lawnmower status?
My lawnmower?
Yeah.
Were you talking about lawnmower?
Well, yeah, because if you've got a lawnmower, the chances are I don't know what age you are, Anna, but if you have a lawnmower, I'm willing to believe you're stinking rich.
Well, I've got a big garden, but...
you see, it's all coming together now. You need to downsize, sell up, move into a flat.
Yeah, well, that's what the government would like, wouldn't they?
Quite possibly.
But what I was actually getting at, like, you can work all your life, you know. I mean, to be honest, my first job was when I was 13. You weren't supposed to work when you were 13. I was still at school, and I got a Saturday job in a fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
And I was so proud, you know, because like you've often talked, haven't you? You know, kids can't do that now. But I was so proud, you know, my own money. And it sets you a precedent, doesn't it? You think, it's wonderful to be that little bit extra. You're providing stuff for your very self. And it helps you in life, doesn't it? So basically, you know, you can work all your life. And then like the state pension, if you're living on the state pension, full state pension, is just over 12 grand a year. I mean, you've got everything to pay from out of that, everything.
Yep.
I mean, clearly, I mean, water rates. I mean, when you look, your water rates, your council tax, your utilities, looking after your animals, food, everything.
It's very, very hard to live on £1,000 a month.
Yeah, it doesn't balance, does it?
No.
It doesn't balance. And when people, I think it's Peter Barnes that's got a thing, hasn't he, about triple lock. And it makes my blood boil because triple lock on nothing is not very much. It gives you something like about an additional £30 a year or something. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the biggie, like they're saying. You know, I mean, there is no margin for, like, if something goes wrong, if the car breaks down, or even going anywhere because of petrol. I mean, it really makes me mad that you go, triple lock pensioners, let's beat up the pensioners because they're easy to go after. But yeah, okay, there is loads of there are pensioners that have money and get the state pension. But there are equally loads of pensioners that just have the state pension. Yeah. And if you have the full state pension, you are not eligible for pension credit or any of that guff.
Sell your lawnmower.
I haven't got a lawnmower. A bit of grass I've got, I do with hand shears.
Well, there you go.
Or sometimes scissors, and that's really sad, isn't it?
Well, no, I mean, sometimes you have to whip out the scissors. It's the only way. Manicure that acres of lawn that you have there, Anna. Listen, I've got to step in for time and no other reason, but you've been brilliant. Thank you, Anna in Bridgewater, over there in Somerset. Thank you to her. Paul Champlain is going to join us in a couple of moments' time. We're talking property. That could be rentals, property prices. Andy Burnham getting homeless people off the streets. Where are they all going to go? Lots to talk about with Paul Champlain coming up next on the show.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full fence, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. Welcome back. 2:45. Paul Champlina is with us, founder of Landlord Action, big regular with us on the programme. Talking about, how are you, Paul?
I'm good.
It's quite funny because we always have a little bit of a football chat as well. And Paul just said to me, I said, did you get to see Spurs for the first game? And he went, yeah, I was there last night, as if last night was a normal game. I know you pounded Charlton about 5-1 or something.
They had 10 changes,
nonsense, but it was
Charlton.
some League Cup thing, whatever the heck.
Yeah, but Chelsea won quite a few times.
Yes, I'm talking about proper league football.
Right.
As in last weekend. So first game of the Premier League. How did Spurs get on that?
Should we
one,
move
Paul?
swiftly on?
Let's move.
We're going to run out of time. People want to hear about housing, not about football.
You're absolutely bang on, but I would be failing not to bring it up.
Of course.
So let's firstly look at an obvious place. UK house prices, big drop since, 2018. Are they going up? Are they going down? I get conflicting stories here.
The market is definitely hardening. It's a buyer's market. I spoke to an auctioneer last week, and he said 1 out of 2 lots are selling at auctions now.
Wow.
Is the reality. I mean, the average house price is about 364,000, which was 1% lower last year. But I think also sellers' expectations need to be a bit more real. I think there's higher borrowing now. Obviously, mortgage rates are still quite high. You've got inflation. You've got what's happening on the global front with regard to the Iran war. Affordability squeeze is an issue. But I think unrealistic pricing is an issue, Ian. But there's more property out there, so there's more to choose from.
That's true enough. There is, and that's great if you're a buyer and stuff.
Of course.
I mean, a lot of people would argue, it's still too expensive.
Yes.
The average house price is what?
364, about £1,000. But I mean, in London, it's something like 680,000.
That is just mental. I know these are obvious words we use.
Yes,
it's mad, it's crazy, and no one knows you can't now suddenly artificially go, right, all those £300,000 houses are going to be worth 50 grand.
Yeah.
Because you'd collapse
We're
the
not building
economy.
enough as well.
And we're not building enough either. Well, Big Ange is back in the job.
Big Ange is back.
Yeah.
Where do we start with that?
Where do we start with Big Ange? By the way, can I refer to... We talk about Big Ange, because...
not the Spurs ex-manager, no.
Exactly. Somebody said to me once, you're body-shaming Angela Renwick. We're not talking about her body, by the way. We're talking about the fact that she's a tour de force. She's Big Ange. And when she walks into a room, whether you love or hate her, people stop and...
Yeah, she's got a real aura and people listening to her, and she's got a big following. I mean, obviously, she's back now as a housing minister, where obviously previously she was, and then she resigned because obviously what happened with regard to her not paying us £40,000 stamp duty. She's come back in. She's saying about obviously releasing planning. It's a bit like I've heard it all before when it comes to the building. I mean, I speak to house builders and I speak to developers, and that there's plenty of them that just aren't building because the cost to build and obviously the workforce is an issue, and of course affordability. And of course there's another problem as well. There's a lot of people that don't want to buy flats because of course the service charge levels are really high. That shot up because of obviously what happened at Grenfell and the cladding issues, and a lot of people are stuck in those. So people prefer buying freeholds, but of course if you buy freeholds, depending where they are, they're more expensive.
Well, the service charging, I don't even know how anybody's got away with this. I mean, because you never speak to anybody who goes, I'll get loads for my money for my service charge.
We don't. I mean, the problem you've got is transparency.
Yeah.
So you also have absent freeholders. You have, with regard to transparency, with regard to what's being spent and how it's being spent.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got, you have to pay for insurance. And for a long time, people have thought that freeholders are getting away with murder and they're charging too much money. That's why there's freehold and leasehold reform, which is obviously going through as we speak. You know, there's a lot of changes to that with regard to abolishment of service charges.
What about landlords? A lot going on in the landlord world, of course, since we last spoke. Yeah. Well, I don't know since we last spoke, but the landlord, the Renters' Rights Act is now an act. It's what has that meant for landlords? I read a headline that record number of landlords are being taken to court over rent increases.
Yeah.
Now, that's not about the Renters' Rights Act, is it?
Well, it affects the renters' rights. So, with regard, I mean, and then of course it's come back in the story with regard to Angela Rayner and lots of people calling for rent caps. Rent rises and rent caps completely different. So what it is under Renters' Rights Act, a landlord can only put the rent up once a year, which is very fair. There's lots of stuff, and I've said this many times before, Ian, on your show, a lot of the stuff with regard to the renters' rights is actually really fair, and it's about empowering tenants and giving them and being fairer, because they're paying, you know, the best part of 30 to 40% of their wages towards rent. Sure. But with regard to, if you want to raise your rent and the tenant wants to challenge, they have to go to a place called the First Tier Tribunal, not the court. It's effectively, they're linked. And what happens is a tenant can pay £47 for an application fee to say, you're putting your rent up and you want to put your rent up to £1,800 a month. I'm currently paying £1,200 a month. I don't agree with that, Ian. So then what happens is it goes to the First Tier Tribunal, but it may take a year for the First Tier Tribunal to see that. And when they do see it in a year's time, it means what's happened is we think that a lot of tenants can use that as a vehicle to freeze the rent. Right. And then in a year's time, the rent goes up. But, I mean, you know, the average term of a tenant staying in a property, and of course tenants want greater security, 100%, and good landlords want tenants to stay in the property as long as possible and have good tenants and have a good working relationship. The average term of a tenant staying in a property is 4 years and 7 months now. It's going up.
So, but the Renters' Rights Act only became law in what?
1st of May.
1st of May, OK, June, July, or so 3 months. So in that 3 months, if there's a record number of landlords being taken to a
First Tier Tribunal,
then, I mean, if those landlords really put their rent up more than once in that time? I doubt it.
Well, they haven't. I think the problem you've got with a lot of landlords, and I've said this again many times on platforms and in the media, is historically landlords didn't put a lot of their rents up. You look at the smaller landlords, a lot of the institutional landlords, they're a bit much more ruthless, and it's all about the balance sheets, and their product is different because it's scalability and they have much more stock. Is a lot of landlords didn't put the rents up. When the mortgage rates shot up under Liz Truss, which obviously ended up in a fiasco, then of course they were forced to put their rents up. And of course that gets passed on to tenants. And now what's happening is landlords, there's a process that a landlord has to follow on the First Tier Tribunal, because of course now you don't have a fixed term tenancy. It's a 1 month periodic tenancy with no end date. And of course the big thing that I saw, and I'm still running Landlord Action, I started the business 26 years ago, up until the 31st of July, Ian, I've never seen anything like it, of landlords issuing possession claims at court. And I can tell you now, hand on heart and someone on the ground, we are going to see a massive increase in temporary accommodation, because there's lots of landlords that are going to go through the court system wanting to sell and get out the industry. And if a landlord gets out, where does that property go and where does that tenant move to?
Two stories, one connected, well, both connected. It's all connected in many respects. Rent controls. Now, obviously, it's a very seductive phrase, rent controls. Lots of people say, yeah, bring on rent controls. I think I'm right in saying
Scotland have got it, had it.
Scotland had it. Am I right in saying rents went up?
Rents went up because what happens is, we had it in the 70s. What happens is, when you bring rent controls in, it never normally works. Okay, it works in the complete opposite, because what happens is, even more land. So I've seen a landlord exodus now, but obviously that's been over the course of time, taxation, interest rates, regulation, you know, being called a landlord as a swear word, all that type of things. Landlords have had enough. And actually, if you've got X amount of money, are you better off just putting it in a pension or putting it into an ISA and getting 4 or 5% without actually all the aggravation of being a landlord? But rent controls is rent capping, where obviously you can't charge over a certain amount. We've seen a lot of stuff that happens in New York and stuff. But what happened in Scotland is that you saw an even bigger mass exodus of landlords coming out. And then, of course, rents went up in the short term. So it never normally works, because, of course, it also stifles investment. If you stifle investment, you can't build properties.
Well, of course. And there's another issue coming around the corner as well. Andy Burnham made an announcement, I think it was the tail end of last week, that he wants to end rough sleeping completely. That would be his kind of ideal. But he wants there to make sure that everybody is off the streets for Christmas. Now,
Yes.
I'm assuming he's talking about temporarily, because...
Well, I think, look...
If he's going to solve rough sleeping in 3.5 months, I mean, that would be extraordinary. Look, but, of course, he had massive success in Manchester,
but he didn't, unfortunately. He didn't. So, look, they're earmarking £442 million to get approximately 5,000 people off the streets in England.
Yeah.
OK? He had a scheme called the Bed Every Night scheme, where they had 600 beds when he was a mayor in Manchester, in Greater Manchester, and there was 268 people rough sleeping in 2017. By 2020, he got it down to 125. In 2021, it went down to 90, and now it's shot back up to 197 in 2025. So he didn't clear the streets, but it's very complex because, of course, you have people with addiction issues, we have people with mental health issues. Yeah. You can't just... What happened was in COVID, they took them all off the streets and put them in a hotel.
Yeah.
Quite rightly, because we're in a pandemic and we were in the unknown, just like you couldn't evict within 6 months of the court, and I totally agree with that. But you'll need... I mean, I was with Elliot Lee yesterday in temporary accommodation and a support company that help vulnerable people, and I was speaking to them exactly about this, and they said to me, you need to have 24-hour care. You know, you need social workers. You need to help, people to deal with addictions. There needs to be support.
It's not just a case going, there's a bedroom.
Exactly. And you don't know what's gone on. So it's great. We all want people off the streets and to be able to help people, but you just don't know what's going on. And it is a challenge. And I think I do commend the Prime Minister to actually have an initiative. But where's the £442 million coming from,
And I heard a documentary of some people in Manchester that have been in that position, and there was one of the problems where I'm sure Burnham's initiative was done with good intention and all the rest of it, but they ended up with sort of 6 or 8 in a room, and there was one girl said that she found that really uncomfortable.
Well, of course.
Because although it was horrendous on the streets and you were vulnerable on the streets, suddenly being put in a room in close proximity with 7 other people, of which 5 were blokes.
Yeah, well, terribly.
She felt
very vulnerable.
Yeah. So you're already vulnerable.
Well,
you're already precarious.
100%. It depends. Where's the area? What's the stock? What support services? You just look at the social service support system we have now.
Completely.
It's more or less collapsing. I mean, I spoke to a friend of mine. She's a social worker in Birmingham, and she said her workload has tripled, and they're all at crisis point. So, it's great. It's commendable. You need resource. You need money. And, if we could eradicate rough sleeping, it'd be amazing.
We've hit the clock, Paul.
I know.
You've been brilliant.
Thank you.
What's Paul Champlina up to next? Because we always ask that question as to what because you've got a lot of strings to your bow. It's not just the world of property and landlords and everything that goes on at Landlord Action. You like your football, you like your boxing as well.
I'm going to the fight on Saturday, actually, my son.
You're going to a fight?
Yes, I'm going to the fight. The Moses Atoma fight. It's a World Championship fight at the O2.
Gotcha.
So I'm going there. Yes, I'm busy. I'm helping people. I'm helping landlords. At our company at Hamilton Fraser, we have lots of different brands. We've got 250 staff. So, I'm very involved still after all these years in the private rental sector. And I kind of want to make a difference. I'm a landlord. I get people. But I'm all about the consumer and helping people, which is really important.
Have you got a lawnmower?
Funny enough, I had a lawnmower and I cut the wire cutting the grass. So it doesn't work at the moment.
I did that with the old strimmer.
Well, yes.
Yeah, I went through 2 in about 10 minutes.
I was warned not to do it. Within 5 minutes, I broke it up. DIY me don't get on.
Classic blunder, Champlina.
Yeah. Do what Mickey Flanagan says at home. Always pretend to be busy.
Yes. That's all you need to do.
Exactly.
I'm going to do that for the next couple of minutes. Paul, good to see you.
Pleasure.
Paul Champlina with us here on Talk. Let's get the news at 3 o'clock.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. You're welcome back. 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. Great calls and comment interaction from you. Keep that coming on that number, of course. What are we talking about? Well, the news we broke yesterday that Meta, owners of Facebook, have agreed to pay up to $18 billion to dozens of US states. It's over the next 10 years to settle claims that its social media platforms harmed children. Now, frankly, it doesn't really touch the sides financially. What did they do wrong? And how do we put it right? How do we protect kids? Is banning them from social media still the only way? This landmark trial saw Meta accused of knowingly and deliberately designing features to get children addicted to its platforms. Also this afternoon, Britons are among hundreds feared dead after devastating floods in Nepal. Rescuers are still searching for survivors after torrential rain triggered flash floods and landslides, with several British nationals reported missing. We'll talk about that in just a couple of moments. And Bill Gates is warning that the world is completely unprepared for the AI revolution. In a major new essay, the Microsoft co-founder is urging governments to officially ban AI from taking certain human jobs. Are we taking this seriously? Some would say that should be front page news. There's Bill Gates, love him or hate him. Big deal, this fella, right? 0344 499 1000. One in from Barry says, before social media it was video games, before games it was video nasties, before that it was comics and so on. There's always a moral panic over kids doing something. That is true. There's always a moral panic, although I think this isn't really just about the moral panic. It's about the addictive nature of it. And never before in the human journey of innovation have we seen anything quite so addictive. Yes, people have always played video games all night long. There are all manner of horrific stories, when I say horrific, disturbing stories of what people do in order to not stop gaming. But comics and video nasties never had the same addictive nature to them. I think that's what kind of marks this out. 5 minutes after 3 o'clock, as I mentioned a moment ago, there are Britons among hundreds feared dead after those devastating floods in Nepal. We know that rescuers are searching for survivors after torrential rains, which triggered all manner of horrendous weather problems, flash floods, landslides as well. And as I say, those Britons that are missing, we still await to get details on. Let's get a word with Dr. Basanta Raj Adhikari, who's director at the Centre for Disaster Studies at Tribhuvan University in Nepal. Dr. Basanta, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, sir. Nice to have you with us. I mean, these are very, very disturbing circumstances to talk, but just explain, if you could, this story, which appeared to, like so many news stories, you know, we heard a little bit about it, then a little bit more, and then suddenly we are seeing these images. When did this all begin? What precisely happened, and was it expected?
So the event was actually occurred around 8:30 a.m. yesterday of Nepal time, and the huge mass of ice, rock, and snow avalanche occurred, and it blocked the river temporarily, and then it breached. And around 9 a.m. Morning time, that flood reached to the border town between Nepal and China. And then if you see some of the video footages, the velocity and the magnitude of the flood is so enormous, and it was not expected. It was very unprecedented. And in my research career in the recent history in the Himalayan hazard, the flood or the hazard created by ice avalanche in that region is one of the largest.
So this isn't whilst the area has experienced very similar issues, this was not, there was nothing in the geological maps that could, or meteorological maps that could have predicted this.
Yeah, I mean, some kind of similar event occurred in this region. Like last year, this valley also received or the experienced similar kind of event. But this is very, very much bigger than that last year and other events in the Himalayas. So this is very unique and unprecedented.
We are hearing of a potential second wave. What can you tell us about that?
Yes. When I saw the recent video drone footages posted by our Chinese colleagues or Chinese media, so there is a water ponding, or there are at least two water ponding areas. This could or this might breach in days to come, maybe tomorrow or after a week, we don't know. But that will create a devastation. But one thing is quite clear, that the second or third wave of this flood will not be devastating like this first event.
Let's look at the situation then, if we could, Doctor, in terms of where this rescue operation is right now. There are certainly, I think, about 1,300 people missing. Clearly, some people would not have survived this. We know that as well. What is the situation in terms of numbers and that rescue operation?
The rescue operation is really, really difficult because the government was not prepared, because most of if you see the flood, some of the videos that you are now displaying now, so most of the villages along the river corridor were washed away, and many people were buried beneath the mud and debris. So the rescue is really challenging. Most of the roads were washed away. So the government used the army helicopter and private helicopters to reach there. And so rescue is really difficult, but the government of Nepal is really trying their hard to go there to find the live bodies and then the relief operations and to do the rapid visual damage assessment. So it is difficult, but the government is trying their best.
And this will be a battle of time to some degree. I mean, we've seen for ourselves, looking at the images, I mean, these things, it's so disturbing to see this happen. And it would be, without wishing to sound defeatist, it would be extraordinary if ever anyone could survive some of that. It is clearly greater than the will or the power of mankind to battle or survive some of these events.
Yeah, I mean, you are absolutely right, because in my own experiences, none of any countries in the world is prepared for such kind of devastation. And if you look on these other events in around the globe, in Andes, Rockies, or Appalachian, or other mountains, this is one of the largest events. So the governments are not prepared for that, because we are not paying much more attention on the preparedness. We are more focusing on the the rescue and relief operations. So that's why we should work on the preparedness to understand or monitor the events, so that we could at least save the life of the people, though we couldn't save, or we cannot save the infrastructure, critical infrastructure downstream.
Indeed. Doctor, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate your time. We wish you well, and those around you and those that you work alongside. I hope the work that you're undertaking, whilst I'm sure is done with every intention, when you are the director, as he is, for the Centre for Disaster Studies. You've got every intention of trying to predict, where something might go wrong, or whether something can be stopped from going wrong any more than it already has done. That whole, when you look at those images, that whole basic nature thing, doing its own thing, with the best will in the world. Is there anyone? It's so disturbing to see this imagery. And we know that there are 1,300 people missing, 33 people from the UK, including, we are told, a 13-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy are among those missing. And of course, we all hope and pray that they are able to find as many people alive as possible. 0344 499 1000. Sean's in Grimsby. He says, as someone who remembers life before the internet and after, life was better before the internet. I think we should just turn it off. Life was great in the 90s. It's quite hard to remember. I mean, genuinely, doing this for a living, I can hardly remember how we put a radio show together without the internet. I can remember if I'm forced to, but it's almost impossible to kind of get your head around how, when I look at what we do now, I don't know how any of this could happen without the internet. You know, people just used to have contact books, and their contact books would have numbers in them, and they would do their big, oh, right, we're talking about banning smoking or something. And then there'd be a file at the end of the old office that had files for all different subjects. But there was just minimal information in there, newspaper cuttings or a research paper. So if you looked up health or cancer or education or some other thing, you might find a file and it might have some info in there. And then you just went, OK, well, let's give Dr. Smithers a call. And somebody go, oh, I've got a number for doctors. And that's how it worked. And now you look at it and think, well, how could... It seems ridiculous that was ever possible. Maybe it was just rubbish back then. Maybe it was better. I don't know. I think social media, would you invent it? Would you invent it tomorrow? Would you uninvent it today? Thoughts on that? Let's go to Alan, who's in Yorkshire. Alan, what have you got for us? Good afternoon to you.
I don't wake up in the morning thinking about Meghan Markle. I don't wake up thinking about Harry. I don't care if Harry and Meghan never come to this country ever again.
You love them. You love them, Al.
I didn't do it quite as well as you, Governor.
Well, it's all right, wasn't it? Yeah, I went on a bit of a rant there, didn't I? And I woke up this morning, there I was, cleaning my kitchen, and I'm listening to Jeremy Kyle replay that moment from yesterday. So... which is always a bit bizarre hearing yourself when you're at home.
Yeah, I was watching it. And I just said to your lovely lady there, can I have a laugh with you? Lovely. And she went, go for it. Yeah. Just don't use any naughty words, as if I would.
No, anyway, as if you would, Alan, as if you would. Anyway, what have you got for us this afternoon?
Right. With the buck stops with parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the internet, the government, the mega... I don't even know what they call these programs, because I don't do any of it. Yeah. Whatever they're called, WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff, Facebook, they can take whatever steps they want. But at the end of the day, and I was talking to Jezza about this earlier on a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, our dads ran very parallel lives, Jezza's and mine, because we loved our dads, we respected our dads. When our dad told us to sit down and be quiet, we sat down and we were quiet. And if you keep nagging, oh, Mum, I want this, I want this, I want this, you know, that isn't going to work, mate. That's not going to work in my house. It's not going to work in my father's house. It's not going to work in my son's house, because I brought him up the way my dad brought me up. At the end of the day, I think probably, because it's not going to go away, this is a runaway train, and it's never, ever, ever going to be stopped, ever. But what we could do possibly is that the parents could hold the code to their WhatsApp or whatever it's called, entry, and just say, you've got 10 hours a week when you can be on the internet. Yeah. I don't care when you have 10 hours. You can have it all in one go, or you can have it a bit at a time. But when 10 hours is up, your phone is closed. And I'm sure we can have the technology to do that.
I think we have this. I mean, it is ultimately, as the parent, you could say you're not going to have, but of course, kids aren't always at home. They're on the school bus. They're in the playground. They're at the school gates. They go out with their mates. So you often end up with a situation there, and phones are no longer just a nice, handy gimmick. You know, kids do their homework on them. They do their they listen to their music on it. It's everything. So they've managed to put everything you need into one place, which rather creates a whole different problem when it comes to trying to ban the thing.
Yeah, but if you love your kids enough, then they're going to love you back. And this is where it starts.
Yeah.
If you love and respect one another, then you're not going to have kids that are going to abuse it, are you? But the trouble is, parents today, more so than ever, take the line of least resistance.
This is true.
You know,
there's peer pressure and there's, of course, parental pressure as well. I mean, it's... Obviously, you're a different era to me, Alan, and when it comes to raising kids, you know, yours are grown up, so it's a different setup. But never underestimate how tiring it is for a kid to ask you for a passcode incessantly. Now, I know it's easy to go, no, you're not having it, and usually that is what happens. But once in a while, we've got mates who've been through this. And you know, entire evenings are obliterated with arguments based on a child saying, I want to get on my phone, I want to look at this.
Yeah, when my dad when I used to say I want, he said, there's a lot of want in the world, and you ain't having any of it.
Well, you do have to be strict. You know, my little boy's got into the habit of every time we go to Tesco, he thinks he should have something. You know, this was based on, you know, once having, you know, a Kinder Egg or something. And and I got him something. They have these little squishes, which has become a massive thing. And it's very, very annoying. And there's still, like, slime and all that stuff. And then afterwards, he wanted to go somewhere. He wanted to go to another shop to get some football cards. And I said, no, we're not going to the other shop. And he got really, you know, he got really upset about that. He said, why? I said, well, I've just bought you something. And there's no way we were never, ever, Alan, going to that other shop. It was never on the agenda. He thought it was. He thought if he keeps asking, it might happen. It was never going to happen.
When no stops being no, then you've built yourself one mother of a problem.
Absolutely right. Alan, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, mate, for that. Alan in North Yorkshire. It is difficult, though. I know it's difficult. And when you're under pressure, I can totally see how... and they often talk about screens, and particularly iPads, becoming a kind of surrogate babysitter, because it is absolutely the easiest thing in the world. If the chips are down and the stress is on, and you're on your Todd, and you've got 3 kids or 4 kids, and they're all kicking off for different things and different requirements, and they want, and an iPad is going to give you an hour or two's respite while they sit and watch anything from Henry Danger to Stranger Things, whatever it happens to be, whatever genre or age group, then I absolutely, every parent, if they're honest, will tell you it can be the answer temporarily, and it's a false economy in many respects, but temporarily it is an answer. 0344 499 1000. More great comment on the way coming next on Talk.
go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, come on! Ready, full fast, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
24 minutes after 3. Don't go away, Anna, with you in a second. This no name given on this one. Using your example of Lawnmower Man, who's living in a £2 million house that he paid 45,000 quid for in the 1950s, then when adjusted for inflation, he would simply be getting his money back with no profit. Your discussion totally ignores the effects of inflation and focuses solely on the difference in the sums. I'm no economist, but if the value of something exceeds, so widely, disproportionately exceeds inflationary considerations and the basic cost of living, then obviously you make a lot more money. So there would have been a point when him paying for that house back in the day, 45,000 quid, oh, probably more than that, whatever it was just an example, then his mortgage was probably quite high at the time. So he paid that, and he paid it for all those years, and now he's paid it off. But fast forward 50 years, he's sitting on a £2 million house. Yes, he paid into it initially, but I think his profits have way exceeded. There would be no other product in the world. It's been said many times. I don't know where we stand at the moment with gold, but there was a point when a brick, in the context of property, was worth more than a block of gold. Or that was the analogy that was crudely given. So, yeah. If something is disproportionately increasing in value, then naturally, if you are the owner of it, you are going to benefit from it. Anna is in Horsham. Hello, Anna.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
Always great listening to you.
Thank you very much. What would you like to say? Social media, what are you thinking?
Yeah, social media. Before I had kids, I was like, oh, yeah, this
happy.
is, most of, happy days. I was most of the time, parents can do more here. But I have 2 teenagers myself. One doesn't give a monkeys about technology, and the other one is completely addicted.
Got it.
They're 16 and 17, and the 16-year-old is a girl, and she's so addicted to she's 16 now. There's not a lot I can do about it anymore. But whenever me and her father said no to social media or having her phone for X amount of time other than what she needed it for. I mean, back in my day, you were given the NSPCC number. Now, when they start secondary school, they're given the telephone number for social services, which is exactly what she did. We said no to social media and certain platforms, and lots of allegations were made, and apparently that way around it seems to be on the increase, sadly. So, not just for me, but for
So she made allegations that you're I mean, to put it mildly, you're mean parents, but because
she basically made every allegation under the sun that she was trying to basically get us to give in and let her have social media and stuff when she was underage.
It's so interesting. I mean, at least now parents will have the. I mean, it's not going to stop the absolute meltdowns, but at least parents will now be able to say, well, it's illegal. It's nothing to do with us as parents. It's literally illegal. Which might help a bit.
Sadly, I've missed out on the age of being 16. And,
but don't you find it weird
the legality of it?
I mean, I've got a mate, his daughter, similar age to yours, and I mean, my goodness, I mean, the stories. I couldn't even broadcast them, Anna. They're so disturbing of some of the things.
No, I mean, we were actually. It's probably why social services are so inundated, because we actually spent 6 months going through the system trying to prove that actually we just have a very poorly young girl who's addicted to social media.
Yeah. What specific social media was it? Was it one place?
It's just like everything in general, really. TikTok. She thinks Facebook's for old people, so Facebook
is for old people. Okay. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I remember.
But yeah, it's TikTok and Snapchat and all the stuff I passworded, but she got around it.
I know, and there's the problem. What I find really, I know this is going to sound like a stupid, very naive statement to make, Anna, but I'm looking at in the summer when I was over at my friend's and. His daughter's there, and she's got a couple of her mates. So at this point, they're all about 15, and they're all buried in their phones, even though they're sitting next to each other. And I'm thinking, I'm a professional man. I also run a company. I do not need to dedicate that amount of time to communicating with anyone. Who are you talking to? Why do you're 15? What have you got to say? What do you need to say? It's unfathomable. I know that's I'm putting it crudely and vaguely amusingly, because obviously it sounds like a daft dad comment to make. But what is the addiction level is so great, isn't it? And you know this, you've seen it firsthand.
It's really bad. I mean, she grew up with our next door neighbour from the age of 2, and I said, why don't you go and see so-and-so for the day? Oh, you don't do that anymore. You WhatsApp each other or whatever it is they do. And I'm like, all you have to do is open your bedroom window and you can talk to her. She'd rather do it on the phone.
So it's changing things like that. Has it got a little better?
I think there's an element of boredom slowly coming into it, but she is trying to find out what the next big thing is. I mean, I hope there isn't.
Is she aware? Is she aware notionally?
She's trying to find out.
I'm sure.
Sorry?
I'd like to think there isn't another big thing for some time. But is she aware that at least notionally it's ridiculous? I mean, will she can admit to that on a good day? That there's, it doesn't matter. It's not important. She's not learning anything from it. Yes, she finds it amusing and she finds it gripping and sometimes entertaining and occasionally maybe educational. But it's not.
No,
it's not important.
When I try and have a conversation with her, she keeps saying, "Oh, you're old. You don't understand it. This is the way life is now." Sadly.
Yeah, I don't know if life is like that. I mean, it is for some people.
I don't.
And
I'm hoping she'll get bored of it.
I think when she goes to college. I think she will, and then other things will open up and things will change. And I read a piece about a woman that It wasn't about social media, Anna, it was about gaming. And she had 2 sons. And one was a massive gamer and the other one wasn't. And the one that wasn't climbed trees and mucked around in the garden, you know, fell out of a tree, broke his arm, stuff kids do.
My son loves nature.
Yeah,
I mean, he's never even had a phone and he's 17.
Which is interesting because he is in the same cohort, he's in the same demographic. But this woman says her son, that she said she didn't see him for like 4 years. She said, and he got to about 20, and he's fine. She said he's absolutely fine. He's a completely normal human being. However, she did lose some years with him. And she said there's no way around that. Her other son, she didn't lose the years with, but as much as it's not had any long-lasting effect, she did lose some time.
Yeah. I totally understand that, yeah.
Listen, I wish you loads of luck, Anna. It is a battle, and it's a battle that unless anyone's been there to see, there is something different about phones and tablets and those platforms that drag people into, certainly younger people, into a world, and it's not always a world of abuse, it's not always a world of, you know, horrific imagery, violence, sexuality, self-harm, whatever. It's not always that. It is a kind of sort of irredeemable, unprecedented level of, on occasions, instantaneous addiction. Talking of tech, Sean Keach is head of science at The Sun. He's going to be joining us in a couple of moments' time. One of the stories we're going to cover is Bill Gates talking about, well, warning about the perils of AI. It's really interesting. We could have done a whole show on this, frankly. We'll talk about it with Sean in just a couple of moments right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
We've returned. We are back at 25 to 4. Lots to talk about here. Sean Keach is back with us, head of science and technology over there at The Sun. How you doing, Sean?
Yeah, good. It's an action-packed time for tech. Usually summer's very quiet, but it feels all pretty non-stop at the moment, which
Indeed.
is quite good for me.
I was about to ask you a question, and I've just realised it's down on our list to talk about anyway. So I'll save it because it's folding phone territory.
Oh, exciting!
Well, it's keeping me awake at night.
Oh no!
Yes. Well, I'll tell you all about it in just a moment.
Okay.
Before we do, this story, and it's not for the first time. We're talking Bill Gates here, talking about the potential dangers of AI for society. Now, he's not the first person. There was that time when a lot of the AI head honchos said, oh, maybe we should put a pause on AI. Now, I think this story is as big as the story of Adam and Eve. I think it's biblical in terms of its size, and yet doesn't really get any traction. It sort of sits there on the tech pages. People like you and I talk about it. Lots of our listeners are interested. I mean, Bill Gates is saying that robots and AI should be banned from taking certain jobs. He's essentially saying, look, he can see mass layoffs because you've got machines and AI doing things better than humans. Now, we're already seeing what AI can do. How good, if that is the way to describe it, does AI have to get before people go, hang on a second? My example, by the way, Sean, sorry, this is a long question. No, okay. My example I always give is, there's going to be a day when somebody's going to walk into work and they're going to say, oh, my brother-in-law got laid off on Friday, him and 10,000 others at the telecommunication company he works for. Oh, right, how many people work there? 10,000. So who works there now? No one.
Just a robot.
It's going to be a lonely robot. It's going to be a story like that. Then people are going to suddenly sit up, and there'll be almost a kind of a sort of a lockdown type moment where I think we're all going to go, what the hell is going on?
The AI one is so difficult because it's very difficult to pass exactly how good AI is, because you have lots of these tech sort of bigwigs who have big investments in these AI companies. And so it really is in their interest to big up even if it's potential dangers. I mean, we've seen lots of these sort of like crazy AI going rogue stories from OpenAI and Anthropic, and you think, oh, well, that's terrible press. But actually, that's great publicity for them, because when the AI is doing all this bad stuff, it's like, well, you need to invest in the AI so that you can have your own AI protections against the AIs going rogue. And so it's, you know, it's in their interest to publicise them, make them seem like, you know, this sort of doomsday technology. It's difficult. Will it replace everyone's jobs? There are lots of different conflicting opinions on this. You know, clearly AI is very good at sort of menial tasks. I think, you know, even though the models have developed significantly, they clearly still very much struggle with creativity, originality, doing anything novel in the way that humans are really good at doing novel. And of course, that's because they're trained on the stuff that we do, but they can only see stuff that we can do. They can't, you know, have these original thoughts. And so, you know, will it replace everyone's job? I don't know. I think certainly, you know, if I was working in a factory, you know, maybe I would be worried. But then I think people in factories have been worried for a long time, because, you know, robotics have been replacing elements of, you know, sort of physical labour for a long time. I think actually this idea that it's going to replace a lot of creative jobs is probably overblown. I think it doesn't do creativity very well. And then I think the other part of it is, I think people just don't want stuff made by AI. In the same that people don't want stuff that's, you know, cheaply made knockoff stuff. I think it's the same thing with AI. I think we're seeing a lot of social media companies having to label stuff as AI because people don't want to watch AI. I think if someone told you that they'd made a movie entirely with AI, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be really interested. I mean, maybe I'd be interested in watching the first one once because of the novelty of it, but then never again, I think.
So would there be a problem if, you know, every now and again somebody, I say every now and again, quite a lot on social media, there's a video up there and, you know, somebody tries to fact-check it, ask Grok, is it AI?
Which is just a nightmare. Yeah, honestly, well, journalistically, it's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare because you can't always tell. So if the quality didn't look any different, but it was AI, but you knew it was AI, would the fact that you knew it was AI ruin your experience of watching it?
I think it would absolutely ruin it. And
so you knew there were
I'm
no
always
humans...
reminded of this chess, you know, scenario where chess is like currently wildly popular, and computers have been able to beat chess for years, but people don't want to watch computers playing computers at chess. People want to watch humans playing chess because there's that, you know, I suppose it's like F1 drivers. If you just replaced all the F1 drivers with robots, maybe they would be better, but who wants to watch robot F1? It doesn't have the drama of, you know, the driver relationships. So I just, you know, I think it puts people off. It puts me off. And
it's a bit like...
I don't think I'm alone.
So I haven't seen Odyssey yet. You may have done.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch it in IMAX, but you can't get tickets.
I know. Well, that's the thing. When you watch it, I like to think that Christopher Nolan, who directs it, and you know, he's meant to be a bit of a tricky character to work with, but I don't really care about that.
He doesn't use phones, interestingly. He doesn't believe in smartphones.
That's interesting.
But then, you know, he'll have people who do use smartphones
He's
around
got people who does. But, you know, serious guy, when you watch it, subconsciously, you are aware that there's a director and there's a director of photography and there's a brilliant editor that has put all of this together, and they've done it with their own instinctive talents and a collaboration of ideas, and that, even though you're not overtly thinking it, I think informs your viewing experience throughout any kind, whether it's theatre, whether it's whatever. You know, so for that to be absent would be massive, right?
Absolutely. I always think of, I have this painting in my house that is an oil painting of like a ship scene. It's like ships crashing on the waves, and it's lovely, it's beautiful. And I just think if a machine had printed that out, it would be nowhere near as valuable to me. But the fact that like a man sat down and spent hours painting this, you know, it adds value to it. So I think something that's handmade, it has that value that AI, I just don't think could compete with.
We've been talking about Meta this afternoon. They've been fined a paltry, and I use that word deliberately, $18 billion to settle this thing. Paltry because it's got to be paid over 10 years. Paltry because they're worth over $1 trillion. Paltry because they've probably currently got 18 billion in the bank, and if they put that in a savings account, they would get the money back to pay the fine. So at no level financially does this affect Meta, is my point.
It's basically a rounding error. And what I thought was actually particularly amusing about this is that they agreed to pay 12 billion, and then the other sort of 5.5 billion is contingent on TikTok and YouTube and Snapchat also doing the same things.
Yes.
So it's sort of a bribe to get the states to go after them as well. I think Meta probably feels like they've been unfairly targeted when, you know, some of these other companies, you know, operate in similar ways, they would say. And so I think it's funny that they've added that contingency to it. But you're right, you know, last year I think they made about 200 billion in revenue. The company is worth 1.4 trillion. So I really, even though it is a large settlement in terms of how far settlements go, because Meta generates so much money, it's quite small for them. But, you know, it's certainly interesting. I think really no one ever expected the money to be truly enormous. The main thing is that they're going to make a bunch of changes to how Facebook and Instagram operate, specifically in terms of youth safety.
But even that's been criticised by some, saying actually they got off quite lightly here because there's loads of other things that they should have been forced to do and are doing none of it and not been asked to do anything.
And also what's particularly interesting is that this isn't the government cracking down on Meta. This is the very American story of you having to do it through lawyers in the courts.
Yes,
so it's a brilliant day to be a lawyer in America.
Well, of course, lots of documentaries and films have been made on things like Facebook. There was The Social Dilemma, which, of course, was the documentary where a lot of their former employees were talking about working in social media and some of the little tricks they get up to. The fella that came up with the like button. You remember that guy on there? I thought that's something no one's ever going to take away from you.
They used to do poking as well. You can't poke anymore.
You could poke somebody. Do you remember that?
Back in the day, you could
poking on Facebook. A lot of poking going on.
I don't think it should have survived.
Can you still say your relationship status is complicated on Facebook?
Yes.
I probably can. We can all probably say that. And then there was The Social Network, which was the film.
Yes, Jesse Eisenberg, which was actually very popular, and now they're making a new one.
There's a sequel to this. So is this strictly all about Facebook?
Yeah, it is. It's called The Social Reckoning. It's out in October, and this is about the big leaks that happened back in 2021 when that whistleblower basically revealed a load of documents that showed that Facebook knew that maybe it was doing things in a harmful way, but decided that actually profit is wonderful and we would like to have more profit. And so they're basically doing that. Jeremy Strong, who is in Succession, played Kendall Roy very well. He is playing Mark Zuckerberg, and actually he does such a good impression of Mark Zuckerberg. It's really impressive. Because Mark Zuckerberg is quite a very specific type of person, and he has a very specific way of speaking and cadence, and he really nails it, which is quite impressive. It's quite. I mean, if you close your eyes, you really do think you're listening to Mark Zuckerberg, which is very strange.
A lot of conspiracy theories about Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, loads.
Loads.
There's the whole lizard people thing.
But there's the lizard people thing. I mean, I just heard somebody say, and they said it so convincingly. You know when somebody says something profound, but in a casual way, it becomes all the more profound and powerful because of the, they haven't given you a warning, like a godlike sort of lecture. And I can't remember who said it, but he just, within the context of an interview or a discussion about this kind of thing, he said, if anyone seriously thinks that Mark Zuckerberg owns or started Facebook, then you're dumb. And I just thought, wow, he said that with absolute conviction, very precise and very calmly. So calmly, he frightened me.
Well, I suppose you could probably...
his overall arching point was, hang on, Facebook's much bigger than...
Yeah, I think you could make that argument.
Why is it that...
It's blown... It's grown so vast. And obviously in a way that Mark Zuckerberg, when he was sort of, sitting in his Harvard dorm could never have imagined. Because, originally it started as a sort of way to just, like, compare faces on the internet, and it was specifically for uni students. And I mean, now look at it. I mean, they have Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. It's such a
But how many? You think about all the big things. How much more stuff could have been invented in a kid's garage in California, rather than, hang on, you had like big things going on at the time. IBM existed. Where were they completely idle in this world of computer technology and progression and where it's going to go next? It seems that everything, whatever, and there's loads of other examples of that was all some, it's just some darky kids. They were just messing around in their par's garage with the spanners and came up with MySpace.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because, like, in hindsight, it seems obvious. It seems like an obvious thing to create, but these things always do. But in the moment, I mean, even you think TikTok isn't that old, but it just came out of nowhere, and now it's one of the world's most popular apps. You just can't predict these. I mean, everyone thought the iPhone before that came out it was going to be rubbish, and then look at it, just incredibly popular.
Well, that's beautifully leads us on to the iPhone, because
that was a good segue, wasn't it? I didn't even mean to do that.
It was beautiful. Each one of our stories have completely related nicely, and you just took it right down that road with absolute smoothness. So the new iPhone is due out soon. We are talking couple of weeks.
Yeah, September 9th. They sent out the invitations yesterday. It's all very exciting in tech circles. I'm personally very excited.
Are you going?
I love this. I'm going unless anything gets in my way.
So you're going to California?
I'm going to go to California.
You've been to a few of these.
I try to go every year.
Yeah.
I love touching the new phone before other people touch it. And then I come on things like this and I tell people about how it felt to touch the phone. And I have to find new creative ways to talk about how I touch the phone. So it's very exciting. Really looking forward to it. This year, specifically, it's meant to be the first foldable iPhone, which is very exciting because iPhones for a long time have looked mostly the same. I mean, they sort of, tweak around the edges, but this is the first time where they're doing something really big. Supposedly, obviously, Apple doesn't confirm any of this stuff in advance. We don't even get pre-briefings. Usually, with a lot of tech companies, they'll tell me about it in advance. I'll sign some documents. Oh, I can't talk about it. Apple doesn't tell me a thing. I turn up and I have to scramble to write out what's going on.
They don't. Every now and again, there's these little sort of leaks, and there's a couple of characters over there in the valley who are, known, who seem to be more reliable,
absolutely,
than others. Now, the smart money would say that obviously it's not a leak, it's deliberately told to create just the right amount of innuendo and suggestion of what's happening.
Yes, and also, even if that wasn't happening, the supply chains for Apple are so vast. I mean, you've got to think they're manufacturing things in India, in China, and so to try and keep all of this stuff under wraps is just impossible. And,
if there is a folding iPhone, it's currently sitting in a box ready to be sold, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it will have been, for weeks and months. They will have, finalised the designs. They were working with people making the cases as well for the phones. So, these things are very hard to keep under wraps. Stuff does leak out. I mean, we've been hearing about the foldable iPhone for years. As the Apple car is a great example, that was supposedly in development for about 10 years. I think they spent something like $10 billion on it, but they've never publicly confirmed that it happened. But, there was lots of leaks and rumours about how they were testing it out in the desert, and yet it sort of just vanished without a trace.
It did vanish. I wonder what the story is there. My problem with the iPhone, you see, I'm an interesting Apple consumer, in that I did read something in one of those leaks that they were talking about, the new aperture capability of the camera. I'm thinking, get in the bin. I don't give a hoot. Cameras on phones, iPhone or Samsung, the result of taking a photograph on any of those phones ceased to be distinguishable to the human eye from computer, like 10 models ago.
I would say, like, even longer than that. They've been so good.
They've been
really,
so good for
the
so
differences
long.
you notice would be either like around zoom or how they perform, like in really low light. But generally, cameras have been really good for a long time.
But you know what it's like. We've both been to those when they take you in. Over here in London, you go to Apple HQ, and you go in, and they've because they do it. I mean, this is they're Apple for a reason. They don't just go, oh, come and have a look at our phone. They've got a photographer there, right? And they've got models that have been bought into a thing. And this photographer, what you forget in that moment, because this guy goes, I'm just going to show you how to make it. It could be French, it could be American, it could be whatever. What you forget is, number one, he's one of the best photographers in the world, right? You just think this is some dude in trousers and a sweatshirt. He's been hired by Apple, and he takes a picture of a rose and you're watching it happen, and he shows you it, and you think, wow. And then I go into my garden when I get the phone and try to do the same thing. But he knows all the settings and everything. And this brings me to my wider point, is I don't need a phone for the music, I need a phone for an office, OK? I want it to do spreadsheets well. I want the calendar to be brilliant. I want the email function to be searchable. Searching for emails is a nightmare, as we all know.
Yes.
Why does it come up in that order? Why is
why is look for something on Gmail, it drives me mad.
The first thing it finds is something from 2018. It's like, no, why would you do that?
It's like it's designed to punish you, isn't it? It's I use Gmail all the time, but it is one of the worst things about it. It just has no idea how to surface the email that you want.
It is extraordinary.
And sometimes you'll type it, and then it'll show you it, but you've typed too much, and then you go back and it...
So my point, Sean, I have to be very brief on this, was that when I think about the folding phone, it could have everything I want on it because it could be more... kind of obvious in terms of an office suite, spreadsheet, like I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, trying to use a spreadsheet on a tiny phone screen is very difficult. Foldable phones, you get that big inner tablet display, much
get
better.
all the old expenses in there for the accountant, so it's done nicely for him because I get rollicked every month. And
it's a thrilling life you lead, spreadsheets.
I know. I'm not worried about cameras. So all of that stuff and putting the show together and, you know, getting our ducks in a row, it could be good for me, but... I'm still not sold on the overarching concept of a folding phone.
You've got to get one into the hand and see how you feel. It'll be expensive. I think that's the thing that's going to put most... I think most people will actually get on board with the idea of a foldable phone.
I think so.
A lot of money.
Sean, we've hit the clock. You are back next week, which will be about a week before you fly off to California.
I'm very excited. I've got to get the sun cream on. I'm very pale. It always stresses me out.
Yes, that's what happens when you go on holiday to Lincolnshire. Although it would have been sunny there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty sunny. Yeah. It's lovely. It's like being on holiday abroad.
Nothing wrong with
much cheaper.
Sean, good to see you again. Sean Keach, he is, of course, Head of Science and Technology over there at The Sun. Thank you to him. This is Talk.
Go to Calais train station?
Yes, train station.
Okay. I was gaping. It was brutal. Come on, guys! Ready, full touch, go on! And they're on the way over to UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Yes, welcome back. This comes from Anthony. Says, Ian Collins, I keep hearing about the full old age pension. Most of us pensioners only get the reduced old age state pension, which is much lower than the full pension. Also, many of us aren't eligible for pension credit, as the parameters for this are very low. So if you only have a small private pension, this puts you over the threshold. So what's the reduced pension and full pension? How does that work? What's a reduced pension? Well, I know what it is as in the manifestation of it, because it says what it is on the tin. What would be the distinguishing reasons as to why you might get the full? Is that about national insurance contributions or something more? Thank you, Anthony, for that. Nico is in Margate. Back to social media. Nico, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. Fire away.
Yeah, so I wanted to pick up on, I think your response on social media is a little bit, what should I say, someone in your called in earlier on and said, you know, once upon a time it was video nasties, and then it was comics, and we had social, you know, moral panics and so on. And that's been happening since well, at least the invention of teenagers in the 50s. And I think social media is a wonderful thing. In fact, Pat McFadden, government minister, acknowledged this on Today this morning. And I think what, you know, he actually said people need to be, or young people need to be socialising more with other people. They need to be getting out and so on.
Do you acknowledge, though, Nico, just to pick up on the, because you're right, and I did confess when I read out the guy that's talked about video nasties and comics and games. Of course, there's always been moral outrage, and I'm sure when books were first invented, something similar happened then, or when the publishing world took off. But this isn't really just about that, is it? This is about the disproportionate nature of instantaneous addiction. That's what differentiates, perhaps, and I'm only advancing this as a, you know, part of this discussion, it differentiates it from previous fads or phases.
Well, you know, addiction, you know, that's a medicalisation of this. You know, there's no addiction in any sense that a doctor or a clinician would recognise it. And, you know, you're not addicted to it. I'm not addicted to it. You know, we're both able to measure our use of social media.
But we're not kids, are we? So you can see why a kid... But a kid would could easily while away 12 hours non-stop scrolling on TikTok.
Yeah, but one of the questions is, why are kids at home in their bedrooms in the first place? Partly because kids are not welcome in public space, partly because we locked them down during the pandemic and stopped them going to school and unsocialised them or stopped them learning to socialise and so on. And also because parents are so risk averse, they won't let their kids go out and play like we did when we were kids.
Yeah, there could be something in that. Listen, no, I hear you. Nico, I am only